Okay, I have no idea what exactly I agreed to for this, but it was some chat with two people about relationships on Twitch. I don't know 100%, but
Hello?
hey, hello?
Hi. Let me just
Hi.
turn the music down a little bit. Sorry.
No problem.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Sweet. How was D&D?
Pretty good.
Let me just grab... How can I... Look, I am like the dumbest when it comes to pretty much everything. How can I add someone to this call
Um,
without...
in the top right, there's gonna be like a person with a plus to the upper right of their thing or whatever.
Yeah. It says that you need to be friends with you to start a group DM in order to get someone in the call. So would it just be easier to just go into a...
Well, no, we're not friends. Sorry, I added you as a friend, or you can add me as a
Oh,
friend.
okay, cool. Yep. There we go. Cool.
Hello.
All right, hi, what's up?
Hey.
Okay, just for full disclosure, I'm also streaming this just
Yeah, I figured, yeah.
as yeah, the whole shindig. Would you prefer? I would personally prefer to have cameras on. Evie does not have a working camera at the moment, so let me just fucking virtual cam or Bonzo. Hey, there we go. Oh, get rid of that. And sweet. Setting up this is always fucking awkward. Okay. Do it. Play. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right, that's not what I wanted. That's a display capture, and I'm an idiot. I wanted a win. So, Evie, why the fuck didn't you sleep?
Um, I don't know. Well, I slept a hell of a lot yesterday, so I ended up staying up playing League with Tassie and everything,
Hmm.
so.
I don't think I can actually do this. I'm thinking about it. There's OBS Virtual Cam. Oh, you know what? I could just do a window capture and then just overlay your face onto it. That would work. You'd think. Doing this for a fucking year. I'd have known this shit. Preparation? Not for me. Uh, give me just a second. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Oh, you know what? Actually, if I just do that, then you should just be able to edit the actual frame transform, right? Yeah. This'll work. Oh my god.
Hey, listen,
Rin,
I'm
what have
close
you
to
done?
I am a fucking mess, dude. I'm telling you. I'm trying to figure this out, all right? Look, make fun of me all you want. It's fine. Isn't there a way to like grab the shit in OBS just so I can like literally just crop it down to what I need without having to use this stupid fucking... There's got to be a way to do this. Or am I just going to do it the stupid ass way? That's not what I want. God, this is so scuffed. Welcome to the most scuffed everything ever. From the bottom, 250. So 500. Where that takes us. Hey, we're getting there. On the right, another 500 maybe? 1,000. I mean, it's getting there. It's getting. Oh my god. So how did D&D go? What'd you get into?
I just ran around, killed stuff. You know, it is what it is.
What do you play?
I play a rogue guy in second edition D&D.
Second edition.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. I've only ever done fifth ed. I just started a campaign not too long ago with a good friend of mine. It's a pretty fucking cool experience. I've been enjoying it.
Yeah,
All
fifth
right,
edition
cool.
is good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a good time.
What are the differences?
I have no idea. Destiny?
Fifth edition is it's a lot more streamlined, without so many like weird, obscure, esoteric rules, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay. So I know that you're on a bit of a timeline. So, I guess we should just jump into it. Hey, just kind of get rocking. So,
jeez, yeah. Hey, what's up? How's it going?
Do you want to get like a coffee or something?
Nope, I'm good. Let's go.
Okay. All right. So, those of you just popping in, hi. Welcome to the first fucking thing of this. It's a little bit of a love project on behalf of myself and Evie, my good friend here, who is with us. It's a podcast called Consider. It's dedicated to pretty much anything that we want to talk about, ranging from silly to serious. My name is Rin. And yeah, Evie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm
Evie?
Evie. I just hang around. I talk about things a lot. I'm the resident. I don't know. You consider me a brainiac, but I don't want to set up any expectations.
Fair. Yeah. So, needless to say, I'm excited about this. I'm kind of shitting myself, just because this is like the first time I've ever done anything like this. But I'm just gonna kind of deal with the stink and just kind of roll with it. So, today, for the first topic ever, we're gonna be talking about Twitch relationships, and basically how to navigate them, from the parasocial to kind of the interpersonal between streamers. The whole point of the discussion today is kind of figure out how you can dodge the bullets of like overzealous viewers. Who would latch onto broadcasters in unhealthy ways, or like steering clear of other CCs who would use others as stepping stones to try and further their own gain. But also try and tackle the idea of building a genuine connection with peers that prioritizes something a bit more personal over any sort of immediate financial or social gain. What are the inherent challenges that a streamer will face on the day-to-day on the platform, and how can people best prepare themselves for entering such a space? Even if they've been in it for some time, I feel like this conversation can then kind of lend itself to a lot of general, just a further understanding of what to expect should you choose to go down this road. So to tackle these things, we are joined by Steven.
Hi.
Right here. AKA Destiny, a pioneer of the platform, kind of going back to the early days of Twitch before it was called Twitch, to Justin TV. Started as a professional StarCraft 2 player, if I'm doing my research right. Today, most notable for political debates against, far-right personalities, and more recently, far-left personalities, and just having conversations that are inherently difficult to have. If you have any questions about the topic at hand today, I would ask that they be put into the Discord PO box, which is, I can just give you a link right there. And we're going to go over those if we have time at the end. Yeah, so if you have any questions regarding any of the things that we talk about today, that's there for you. And that's pretty much it. Hi, Steven.
Hey, how's it going?
On the verge of barfing, but other than that, pretty good.
Okay, that's good.
So yeah, I think just to kick this off, one thing that we kind of need to really touch on first is realize that there are different types of relationships when it comes to the platform itself. You have a circumstance of the parasocial, which I would define as like a streamer to a viewer supporter. Then you have the sort of interpersonal, which can range from streamer to streamer, close friends, mods, really anyone that you call like in your inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the professional, which can also be like the streamer to mod editor, the transactional relationships between other streamers, mostly seen as like a collaboration or stuff of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that it's important to define what each of those are, because I believe that each has their own set of special parameters that changes the acceptable interactions between those individuals in order to maintain a healthy relationship, regardless of how they're categorized in those like subsections. Obviously, there's exceptions to that rule, or to any of the rules that would generally be laid out between those different types of interactions and those relationships. But I'm curious to see or to hear your perspective on what you believe a parasocial relationship is.
So I think as it's commonly defined, I think a parasocial relationship is when a viewer thinks they are closer to you than they actually are. And then especially when a viewer starts to substitute online friendships with people that aren't really friends with them or don't know them for real life friendships.
Okay. Evie?
Yeah, I think that that's like a pretty fair definition. I think I would have like a broader definition of pretty much any regular viewer of a streamer. I would say, but I think when we're talking about like parasocial relationships that are like on the verge of like problematic, I think that that's probably a really correct definition. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people talk about, when you say parasocial relationship, it's almost ubiquitously used as kind of a derogatory thing. So I wouldn't call like a normal fan like a parasocial, like they have a parasocial relationship, because it seems like that's not really how it's used today in the common vernacular.
Right.
But I mean, you could, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I'd have like, so I would differentiate between like a normal viewer or fan with somebody that is developing like a parasocial relationship, whereas the latter has kind of an unhealthy attachment or thinks they're closer than they actually are to a given streamer.
Do you think that the definition of parasocial has sort of changed with the overall use that it kind of has in the current day? Because like I've always viewed a parasocial relationship as any sort of engagement where there is an imbalance of social interaction. So like as a streamer, you give way more than anyone could ever give back through the means of like a chat or a Discord engagement. You're never going to get an equivalent exchange, because people are going to see more of you than you can ever see of them. And that from my lens, I don't see the word parasocial relationships or the words parasocial relationship as an inherently bad thing. I feel like parasocial relationships are kind of like walking a tightrope. And the thing that prevents you from falling off of that tightrope is the awareness that you are engaging in a parasocial relationship. The thing that allows you to balance, if you will, is that awareness of knowing that there is an equivalent exchange there. And that's sort of akin to like having the balancing beam that you hold to get across said tightrope. And that it is a very inherently tricky thing to navigate, because it's very easy to fall off of that tightrope. But I guess I would just say that my definition doesn't align with the definition that's commonly used, and that I would more stick to something like that, because to be engaging in a Twitch space is to have a parasocial interaction, and you're going to develop a relationship from that interaction, right?
Yeah, I mean, we could, but at that point, we're basically describing every single fan content creator interaction, right?
True. So then I guess it would be to what you would need to do is then define, okay, well, what are the unhealthy parasocial parameters, which I think everyone is kind of clued in on. They kind of know what they are.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, sure. You could. Yeah, yeah.
So that's the first one. And I would say that in general, when it comes to parasocial relationships, it's very important for, again, I don't know how to word this exactly. Making sure that the people that are watching you or the people that are choosing to support you know your boundaries as an individual so that they don't engage in those parasocial behaviors. But when I think about like just that in and of itself, it brings up an interesting question of the idea of like, do you believe it's your responsibility to sort of discourage any unhealthy behaviors that can come about from the inherent imbalance of like being on Twitch, of being a part of this social structure that Twitch has?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that any content creator has a somewhat big level of responsibility in how they choose to engage with their fans. There's definitely like unhealthy relationships that I think you can play on to get more money out of people in ways that probably aren't very healthy for the viewers.
Right. That's an entirely interesting kind of lens to look at it from, like, because there is undeniably a few people that I've seen who will encourage, who will encourage those exactly what you just said. They'll encourage a parasocial interaction because it does inherently lend itself to a more profitable end, right?
Yeah.
And we could go into the argument of, like, is that a good or bad thing? I don't think anybody would really say that like it's a good thing to do that. I mean, if you're looking purely from the financial aspect, then right. But anyone who I would say kind of respects the space that they're trying to provide or respects the individuals themselves, they're not going to intentionally do something that would encourage that kind of behavior. Because it treads on some pretty dangerous territory. Because then you can get people who will take it too far. That quickly turns into like a stalking, an over obsession with the individual, XYZ. Out of curiosity, what do you do personally to try and build healthy social relationships with your community?
I mean, like, I'm pretty forward and frank with everything that I do. I don't lie to people and tell them that you're going to be my friend if you're not. The type of engagement that I have with my community isn't like, in some ways it's more personal than most, and in other ways it's a little bit more distant than most. Like, I spend a lot of time in my chat, like talking to people and stuff, but I'm not like making people promises that I'm going to be their personal friend or anything like that. I think it's a little bit different. I think generally male streamers don't have the same problems that female streamers have when it comes to skirting these kinds of issues, although it could happen the other way. But yeah, I guess it just depends on how you play off your audience or how you get your views.
Yeah, I can kind of agree with that. I think that from my lens, it's just from the experiences I've had over the past year on the platform, I can say that there's been a lot of people who have been more than willing to step over certain lines and boundaries, especially when it comes to just like how they treat me and how they will treat my relationship with my partner. And a lot of the times it's kind of treated as like a non-thing, where people will just say random gratuitously gross shit just out of like a lack of respect for that specific thing. I mean, that again kind of teeters into a little bit of a different discussion, but I think
actually I have a sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Edie.
I was gonna say, what are some ways that that you would feel that streamers take advantage of viewers in terms of like taking advantage of what might be an unhealthy parasocial relationship? Do you have anything in mind that like you've seen on the platform?
I think on the male side, I think there's some crossover between like personal relationships and like how you can be unhealthy in a personal setting and how you can be unhealthy in a public setting. So people that do like a lot of trauma dumping or farming, I think can get into weird areas. So if I come onto my stream and I start talking about how horrible my life is, or I kind of like dump about some personal stuff that probably shouldn't be on stream in an attempt to garner sympathy from my fan base, I think that's a way that you can start to foster really unhealthy relationships where viewers are incredibly invested in kind of the personal ongoing of your life, which they probably shouldn't be. I think that's one way from the male side you could do it. From the female side, the most common thing you see is like the girlfriend experience kind of thing that people sell,
Right.
where girls will sometimes intentionally lie about whether or not they're in a relationship, and they are a little bit more friendly than they should be in a way that gives kind of the impression that like people in chat or moderators could, maybe, get with a girl or do something. I think that like these are like both of these things are pretty extreme. I don't think it's like the most common thing. I think that they're both pretty rare. But I guess that would be like two examples of things where people can get their fan base to get a little bit closer than they should be. And then you can run into weird areas past that. It's also possible too to develop parasocial relationships, especially from the female end, if you're not intentionally trying to do these things too, though. So like some women can just stream, and for some reason people think that she's talking to me and only me, and I'm going to get her or whatever, even if the girl's not really doing anything
Right.
to foster that relationship. And it can probably happen on the guy end as well. So yeah, I mean, it kind of depends. Yeah.
Do you think that there's a certain level of um, do you think there's a limit to like what people should share in a public space like Twitch when it comes to their personal life? Like, I personally don't think that it's an inherently bad thing to kind of like give a little bit of a peek into the window, if you will, about like the things that you might be struggling with at any given time. And I think that transparency can often lend itself to an authentic experience that people can kind of like go, okay, you know what, I can relate to this, I can understand this, and I feel like a little bit better knowing that this person can relate to this experience that I've had before.
I don't believe
You-
that. I think that there is a way to do that. So I would say that if you want to share an experience like that, I think that there should be some level of grappling with that experience or overcoming that experience. I think that without that, you're engaging in kind of like I'd say like a masturbatory activity where you are just kind of working off the emotions of your audience rather than sharing an experience that I think is actually worthwhile or enriching for your viewers. So let's say, for instance, I have an issue with abusive parents, right? If I decide to share that experience on stream, like, hey, I had an abusive relationship with my dad, blah, 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 blah. This is what I did to kind of work through that. Like I went through this, or I did that, and this is that, and like these are the steps that I took, and now like I'm in a happier, healthier, better place. I think that's an experience that's
Right.
worth sharing on stream. But if it's just you kind of like come on stream every day and you talk about like, oh, it's so horrible, blah, 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 blah. My parents are so mean to me all the time, and you're not really moving forward with it or engaging with it in a healthy way or doing anything with it, I think that you're kind of just engaging in I don't know, I call it trauma dumping. But I mean,
Well, I
some
mean,
people
that's
don't
what
even
it
think.
is.
Yeah, some people don't think that that's even necessarily a bad thing to do, though. So I guess it depends on your perspective on that. But anytime you're kind of like, I don't want to say flaunting. Anytime you're kind of airing out like a whole bunch of like personal issues that you have, and it's not really to like illustrate a point or to share a story or anything like that. You're just kind of doing it to foster sympathy for you. I think that you start to grow really dangerous relationships with your fan base there at that point.
Okay, so you would say that like you define the line as that story or that experience that you're sharing having some sort of inherent resolution or something to be learned from it that you can then pass on to
Yeah,
the
there's
people
got
who
to be
are
like a
listening to you.
purpose. Like, why am I sharing this? Is it because like, yeah, these are like some worthwhile message
Right.
here for my audience, or am I literally just doing this because I know that people hook into some of these stories really well, and then
Okay. Evie, do you have anything that you want to add onto anything that was said prior?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that kind of like covers pretty much the majority of the parasocial stuff. I think just talking about if I can kind of like loop back around just to kind of like summarize all my thoughts on it. For me, it's something that I very heavily try to avoid, and I'm very, very vocal about it. I always try to set the boundaries very firmly, and when people step over them, which they sometimes do, that very firm reminder that that is the thing you don't cross this line.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that because you and I kind of share a similar view on the matter, that it makes it a little bit. Sorry, I'm fucking recovering from allergies and just shit.
You're good.
Sorry for coughing. And there's the ADHD fucking brain fart.
You talked about how it's really important to kind of like reassert your boundaries if you feel like somebody's crossing the line. Yeah, which is fair, which is true. Yeah.
Because like I think it's really easy when you're streaming and someone does step over that boundary, especially when it's like tied in with like if someone says something while they're gifting like a sub, or when they're doing a donation or something like that. It's a lot harder to, in that circumstance, say like, you know what, no, this isn't okay, this isn't acceptable, because it then comes in with this other aspect of like, I appreciate the generosity, I appreciate that you're, you know, supporting what I'm trying to do, but this is the line, right? And there's not really much that you can add on to that. Like, how to tackle that is really just, you just need to do it, and you just need to get used to it. End of, I still think that like when people use the word parasocial in like kind of just the modern conversation, or the current conversation, it's inherently a negative thing, and I don't really want it to continue down that path, because I think that at its root, a parasocial relationship isn't a bad thing.
Sure, I think it's probably a lost cause at this point to try to save.
Yeah.
Because I think parasocial like almost always means unhealthy fan interaction. Like I think that's just how everybody uses it.
I mean, we've come up with other terms for that, like stan and other things like that. But yeah.
That's how I've noticed it start to be used too. I've tried making arguments that like a parasocial relationship is, like I said before, like I was trying to define it as when you have that imbalance where you have a viewer who knows a lot about a streamer, but you have the streamer who doesn't know really anything about the viewer, and there can be a tendency for viewers to feel like, oh wow, I really know this person, and stuff like that. Yeah.
It also to kind of tangent off of that as well. God damn it. You take your fucking ADHD meds and it just doesn't even fucking help sometimes.
Sure.
I literally just had this fucking train of thought. This is just
they
all
were
too
talking
common
about
for
how
me.
like there's a power differential that they define a parasocial relationship as when the fan knows way more about the streamer.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that's gone. Like, it's
yeah.
just straight up gone.
And like there can be this thing where for a streamer, like an interaction with a fan, for that fan that could be something that's like really meaningful that they could carry with them for like a long time, but for the streamer that's just like one out of like many interactions that they have over like the course of their day or their week and stuff like that. And
That was literally the thought.
Pretty forgettable. Yeah.
Because I think it speaks volumes about just the nature of the platform itself. Like, and I've experienced this before I started streaming and before I kind of started doing what I'm doing now. Yet like this almost like this hit of just like this feel good of like, oh shit, I got noticed, right? Especially like as numbers increase and, you know, the likelihood of you being noticed becomes, you know, less and less likely. That from the other end of the lens, a simple hi from myself to anyone who supported me is quite literally for me just like, it's a hi. It's just, hey, how you doing? Like, it's just very but to them, because of that, like that inherent imbalance that we've kind of talked about before, it means so much more. And I mean, you could argue even that is engaging in an unhealthy way.
Kind of. I think one thing that's important to note, I think people make this mistake a lot, just because a power imbalance exists doesn't necessarily mean that the interaction is bad or unhealthy. It just means that there's a higher likelihood for there to be an unhealthy interaction. So it's always going to make sense that like an interaction between a fan and a streamer is going to mean more to the fan than the streamer, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like that's just the nature of a streamer is going to mean more to a fan because there's one streamer, there's a lot of fans, right?
Right, right. I mean, you see that in just like the everyday, like normal
And every
celebrity
single
culture.
type of,
Like
yeah.
it's yeah. That kind of touches on something else a little bit of like, do you think that that kind of encroaches on, like, at what point does that become idolization? At what point does that become an unhealthy thing?
I mean, all of these terms are
And-
nebulous. I think that like the words for it don't matter. Like, when is it idolization? Is it fan? Like, I think the issue is that like when it's getting to a point to where it's like inhibiting normal functions of your life. You know, if you're like skipping school to watch a streamer, or if you find that your emotional state is tied very heavily to a streamer, that like if they have a bad day, you have a horrible day, or you know stuff like that, then it's probably time to maybe reevaluate, take a step back.
I think it's kind of I could imagine because like I've always had a pretty like level head when kind of like when I do find someone that I personally look up to or like I like their work or whatever. I'm very much a person that likes to love from afar, and I don't really get super attached in that way. But I can imagine that someone who does end up engaging in something that is like that it would be very difficult to recognize that, and it would be really hard to pull yourself out of that. So just to as a little bit of a thought experiment, like what could you say or do to dissuade those kind of interactions or try and pull people out of that, because that kind of touches back onto discouraging those unhealthy behaviors, right? If you see that, what do you do as the individual to try and like, hey, say, wait, hold on.
I mean, if somebody's like already kind of developing that, it's a little bit it's a little late at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of like the way that you manage your fan base. Like the more personal you get and the more personal stories you share with your fans, the more likely it is that they're going to start to grow very personal attachments that maybe they shouldn't be. That just is the nature of the game. But I mean, like there's always that trade-off, because the more personal you get with your fans, the more trust you get with them, the more money you'll get from them. So it's kind of, you have to make a decision about like how responsible you want to be and juggling, I guess, like that engagement. Yeah.
So piggybacking off of that, you, from what I understand, you have a pretty open dialogue with your supporters. Like they know where you're going, what your schedule's like every day. You're in and out of your own chat all the time. You're constantly engaging in that way. Wouldn't that inherently also lend itself to potentially causing those types of those relationships to crop up? Or
I mean, it could, but I think that the way that I balance most of my stuff is like pretty open. I'm pretty frank about what you're gonna get. Like, I think I even joke that like if you subscribe to me, for instance, you're not gonna get anything. I'm not like, maybe I won't ban you as
Right.
much in chat, but like you're not. There's no illusion that like you're my friend or anything like that. It is possible that, you know, unhealthy things could develop, but I just have to kind of look at like, well, what's the history of my fan base, and like, do I feel like those relationships crop up a lot? You know, I've been streaming for like 12 years now, and I don't think I have that problem. So I
Right.
guess I'm doing something right.
could you venture a guess as to what you are doing to have such an openness with the people that choose to support you, but also having, as you said, a seeming lack of that kind of engagement? Like, is there anything that you could kind of like pull from that might be a cause for that to be the case? Because that seems like a minority.
Yeah, I think that I'm a very emotionally healthy person, and I think that's an exceedingly rare thing to find, especially in this world. I think this world probably overrepresents for really unhealthy personalities. I'm happy like almost all the time, unless I'm playing League of Legends, but like I'm a pretty happy person all the time. I don't exude this aura of like, I'm sad, I need somebody to take care of me, I wish that you guys would just be my friend. And I think that aspect of your personality is probably one of the things that plays the most into getting people sucked into a very negative environment, both in real life and like on stream. Yeah. So I mean, it's hard to say, but like, oh, just be positive. Doesn't really get us very
Right.
far, but yeah, I think that's probably the thing that plays the most into it, is if I had to guess, because like most people that like exist in these online platforms are pretty negative, or pretty depressed, or pretty sad. So I think that probably plays into how hooked people get into some of those streams. Yeah. Like if you look at like a lot of like the big draws, it's usually like, oh my God, like somebody cries because they got their first GF or BF, or like, if you're familiar with like, Dr. K and his kind of like quasi therapy stuff that he does on stream, people are like, oh my God, like it was so nice. We get to see them cry and blah, blah, blah. And like those things I think are probably not the healthiest ways to garner fan interaction. Yeah.
So that brings up another question regarding that again, the same topic of like, when you look at the people who have anywhere between like 30 to 50,000 people in their chat, right? You have these people who seemingly are very happy. They don't like trauma dump. They don't engage in behaviors that seem to be promoting any sort of like parasocial engagement that becomes an unhealthy engagement. And yet that kind of mentality, or that kind of like, it's super prevalent. Like when you look at
I don't know, is it? Like if I'm thinking of like pretty big streamers, like Hassan is a really big streamer, XQC is a really big streamer. Like, do these people have issues with like parasocial relationships that much?
Well, I mean, you could make the argument that like the places that I see it largely are from like Twitter, and you do occasionally see it like in the actual chat itself. I remember there was a circumstance where an individual had a viewer that turned to a like scary level stalker very, very quickly, and they were doing everything that they could. And I know that again, in these types of circumstances, there's always like a little bit of a nuance to it, right? There's always something on the other end that the other person could be like miscommunicating, misperceiving, or whatever. But if someone is doing it correctly, or to the best of their ability, why does it still happen to the degree that it does?
I guess I would need like examples
really,
of like, who do we think are like, who is this happening a lot to? Because I feel like there aren't very many big streamers that are having these issues in the background. The ones that do, I think it's because they tend to play into stuff or feature like aspects of their personal life a lot on stream. So like you could argue that like there might have been, are you familiar with like the big streamers, or
I follow
like Mizkif or
yeah.
XQC? Yeah. So like when these people feature relationship drama on their stream, that's like a big hook for a lot of people. So XQC and Adept for a while, that was kind of like a big part of what was going on. For Nick and Malina, that was a big part of like their stream sometimes.
Right, it's almost like a reality show.
Yeah. Now, I think that when you start to get that type of thing going on your stream a lot, then you're going to run into people getting really hooked on what they're seeing. And that's just going to happen. Yeah.
Do you think it's more likely that that these kind of things happen to smaller streamers more than bigger streamers, just because of the higher level of interaction they might be able to have with a smaller streamer?
Could be, yeah.
Oh shit! I had to turn you up, Evie. Fucked up my own shit. Yeah, I don't know. I think it opens up an interesting dialogue of like, what do you do when you do everything correctly and you still have those kinds of things? Like if you're setting your boundaries down, right, and you're making sure that they're abundantly clear, and you're not engaging in anything that is inherently I guess pushing for that kind of an interaction. When it does crop up, is that kind of just like a, well, shit, this is out of my hands? Like
well, I mean, then you have to
you
go into like crisis management mode after, I guess, or figure out like what you can do at that point. It depends on the type of engagement you're getting. Like if you're getting a person like stalking you in real life, maybe you call the police, or I fucking have to move, I guess, if something gets really bad.
Right.
But I mean, it's going to depend a lot on like, well, what exactly are we talking about for an unhealthy interaction, right?
Right. Well, and that's a whole like different, like that's a fucking scary thought. Like the idea that someone would be forced to move because someone gleaned something that wasn't appropriate. You know, someone got too attached in that regard. And I think that, trying to negate it down to zero is never going to be a reality, because you can't account for the way that people are going to react to you. But I do think it's important for anyone who's trying to get into this space to try and like start Twitch or is continuing down the path. It's important to know that this is a reality, and that you need to do whatever you can to safeguard yourself from these types of things that can occur.
For sure.
So yeah, I don't know. I just
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna start streaming, you gotta like hide your phone number. You gotta make sure your address and stuff isn't publicly searchable online. You've gotta, yeah, there's like precautions you take for sure. Start name searching yourself on Google, see what pops up, see if Facebook shows your stuff.
do you think that there's an inherent benefit? And this is a little bit tangential here, but do you think there's an inherent benefit to being someone like a faceless streamer? Someone like
there's pros and cons to literally everything. Yeah.
Because I think that that opens an entirely different dialogue of like, if someone is faceless, then the people that are supporting them, they can put, they're basically a blank slate. Like you can put whatever you want on that person, and it's just it's your iteration of that individual, right?
Sure.
So do you think that that there's an inherent benefit to that, because I think it has some inherent benefits to it, where like if people don't know what you look like, they don't know your name, they don't know anything about you, it's going to safeguard you from those types of interactions that could potentially cause you to fucking move. Or
yeah, it'll safeguard you, but then people also won't watch your stream because they feel like they can't relate to you. They don't know who you are, right? There's always like there's trade-offs. The more you open yourself up to people, the more there is for them to like. The more vulnerable you are, the more somebody can connect with you. Again, this is true in real relationships, right? But there's like the trade-off, right? The more vulnerable you make yourself towards somebody, the more they have the ability to hurt you, you know?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I would say so. But I do also find it kind of interesting that when you have circumstances of blank slates, right, of people that don't have any sort of physicality to them other than just their voice and the things that they do on any sort of platform they have, be it music, streaming, YouTube, whatever, right? That inherent gap of whatever it is that they aren't providing being filled in by the people that choose to support them would then also lend itself to an even more problematic circumstance where, because they are literally putting their own interpretation of this individual onto this person, that it becomes more personal.
I understand.
Their attachment becomes more personal.
I
And
could
so they're
see,
able
like,
to
a-
fall into that trap a bit easier.
Yeah, I can see where that's possible, but I don't think that realistically would happen. I think there's more, if somebody's like actually putting out something for you to get like hooked onto, that's going to be more powerful than somebody's like interpretation of you, I think.
Okay.
Or at least I haven't heard of like a
So-
faceless, nameless streamer where people get obsessed with them or whatever. I think you need a little bit more there for it generally.
Well, what about any space that isn't inherently tied to specifically like Twitch? So like Corpse Husband, for example.
Or what do you
And
mean
then
by that?
you do have a couple of streamers like Dream. Dream is large. I don't think Dream has ever shown his face ever, right? How would you kind of explain that circumstance? Because as you just said, you think that people who don't give that sort of personability to their viewers, that inherently
Yeah, you're playing at a big
isn't gonna merit-
disadvantage, basically. Yeah.
right. So do you think that the people that do participate in sort of like a who choose to remain completely anonymous and have their personal life and their online life completely separate, do you think that those people are at a massive disadvantage initially? And
For sure.
I'm not just
Yes. It's a big personal way that people like to connect with you, and when you totally forgo that, then you're at a big disadvantage. Yeah. Not to say that it's right or wrong or good or bad. It's it's up for you to manage how you want to handle your online everything, right?
right. I don't know if I would agree with that entirely. I think that like one of the main reasons why a lot of characters in video games are like blank slates, right, is so that you can relate to them, or in shows or whatever, right? Like it's really, really fucking common in like animes and stuff that don't center around like a specific protagonist, or like the protagonist is completely just blank, like they have no redeeming anything, right? So it's easy for you to put yourself into the shoes of that individual.
Sure, but that's different.
And-
That's not where you're trying to get attached to an individual. That's where you want to be an individual, right? Like, I just
Right.
can't think of all these like faceless streamers that have these huge parasocial problems. I think it generally happens more with people the more they share about themselves, not the less they share about themselves.
When I think of like somebody who had like the most parasocial problems, I think of like somebody like Ice Poseidon, or somebody who like would have actual fans just come to his house all the time, and that was like I think that's like the most extreme example I can think of in terms of like parasocial obsession
Mhm.
and like weirdness with people like around the
Yeah, but I mean,
streamer.
like, look at why do we think that happened, right? Like, he literally had fans that grew and became like streamers through him, right? Like, Mizkif was a cameraman. You had all the Andes that were like fans of his that basically became streamers off of his success. They were like the CX Army, the Purple Army. It was them against the world. So I mean, like, there were a lot of things that were, I think, playing into that mentality. So it makes sense that that's kind of how that went, you know?
Right, there were a lot of people that had like a lot to gain by trying to have those kind of interactions with him.
Mm-hmm.
I am a bit ignorant on that, if I'm being real. So I can't really comment much on it. But I don't know. I really do feel like that I'm not saying that like I don't think that it is. Trying to figure out how I want to word this. I don't believe that by being a faceless personality online makes it harder for people to form parasocial relationships. I think that you will find it harder to be successful just on the platform as a whole, initially starting up. But when you get that ball rolling, I think that it's very easy for people to latch on to those that don't have a definitive face, because you make that face for yourself. And because you make it, you then become more attached to it. And
Yeah,
when
I
you
mean, I
become more
understand what you're
attached to
describing. I think
it-
that it happens
yeah.
to some extent in fiction. I don't know for streamers, it just doesn't seem to be the case that, like, in every like reality TV show and everything, I think it's usually like you have like your lead characters are always like pretty strong personalities that people are watching. It's not just like blank nobodies. People want like the most extreme, the most wacky kind of thing to watch and kind of like fawn over or whatever. No, or that seems to be the case
I
like in
guess-
all streaming and reality TV and everything I can think of.
Maybe I'm not defining what I'm trying to say clearly enough. I'm not saying that the people that are blank, they're blank slates and they have no personality. They do have a personality, but because they don't have that physicality to them, right? Like when I look at you, you are Steven, right? The face and the name, they match, right? But when you think about someone who doesn't have that, you have to imprint whatever it is that you think that they look like onto that name.
Oh, sure. I guess that could happen. So
So
yeah, maybe. I guess it's possible. I just don't know if this happening as much. But maybe if there were more bigger streamers that did this, maybe that would be the case.
okay. I guess I'm having a hard time kind of like do you then not consider people like Dream to fall under that category?
Yeah, you probably would. But Dream is a huge anomaly, right? Like he's very much not the norm.
Okay. And so you would you say that a majority of the people that are faceless, they are an anomaly as well?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if we look at like across all the top YouTube channels, across all the top streams, like 99% of people have like cameras and stuff. Like Dream is known as being an anomaly, that he doesn't do like the face reveal and stuff. Right?
Right. And like I don't think that I think we're getting a little bit off topic of the original thought, which is do people who have a faceless space or a faceless like if they are faceless, do you think that that lends itself to a easier time for people to form unhealthy parasocial relationships with that individual?
Yeah,
which is
it
kinda like
seems
where I
hard
was-
because like when I think of where the parasocial relationships come from, I just don't have that many examples to go off of. It's just super rare to see like faceless streamers. Like it's like super rare. Yeah.
I guess I can only say that like from my personal experience with people that I remember in the past, like Cryotic, and more recently like Corpse Husband and Dream, and I believe, and I'm not 100%, I'm kind of fucking out of loop with this kind of shit. I believe Rambo is also faceless.
Who's
that
are these like
correct?
VTubers or are these just like
Minecraft YouTube, streamers, I'm
okay.
pretty sure.
Maybe it's more common
Well-
with some of the like kid-friendly streamers. Maybe that's just like a different thing. Like because I know my son used to watch, I don't think he does anymore, but he used to watch some of the like Stimpy, I don't remember these guys' name, but like I don't think these guys they might not have always had like face cams and stuff. Maybe it's more common for them. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm literally just guessing. I don't watch. This isn't like my brand of content generally.
Do you
Alright.
do you think that having a fan base that are like mostly children, that changes a lot of the dynamics.
Yeah, of course.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that that would be an incredibly difficult thing to navigate. Like if you're, because like I would imagine that especially with stuff like Minecraft, because it does appeal to a younger audience, that discouraging those kinds of relationships and engagements that can become very quickly unhealthy, um, becomes all the more difficult because you're dealing with um, you know you're dealing with a kid, and kids can get very attached to very specific things very quickly. And navigating that would be like that would be a fucking nightmare. Like I couldn't even imagine.
I mean, it depends. In some ways, it might be easier. I just it super depends on what it is. Like, if I was playing games for like a bunch of like 12 or 14-year-olds, I don't know. For me, I think kids are very easy to deal with. Sorry. I mean, like what they want is pretty simple, especially if they're just watching you for gameplay. Like, if you have like an audience full of like 10 or 11-year-olds, I don't know if these people care as much about like relationship drama or cancel culture or anything like that, right? They might just literally be there to watch you play like Roblox or some shit, So in some cases, it might be like way easier to handle younger fan bases versus, teenage ones or the early adult, whatever people maybe. But I don't know. I don't manage those types of fan bases, so it's hard for me to say.
Yeah, I can't really comment either. So, just from a hypothetical standpoint. So I think we pretty much covered like the majority of like what a parasocial relationship is and how like you can best navigate it on the platform. And to kind of transition away from that and kind of move into the more interpersonal stuff, I think that it's easy to know where you stand when it's you, the streamer, and a viewer. It's very easy to understand what like in terms of like your boundary, the engagements that are acceptable, as long as they're aware of the circumstance that they're engaging in, that they don't cross those boundaries, all good and gravy. It gets a lot harder, I think, and this is just from my personal experience, when it's streamer to streamer, and because you can have someone who is a streamer that can also be a viewer. But because that they are also engaging in this in the race, if you will, that there's a sort of not tension, but an uneasiness. Because like trying to decipher the difference between someone who is just in your space that is also a streamer that just wants to support you, from someone who either genuinely wants to make a connection or wants to be professional or personal. Or like is vying for some sort of feigned connection to try and use you as a springboard to do something else, right? And it could be extremely anxiety-inducing because of how, again, from my perspective, how nefarious it can be. And in that same vein, I think that building that bridge between the supporter, the viewer, or whatever, it brings about an anxiety, again, personally, of am I being like a leech? Am I being am I preying on someone else's platform to try and garner something from them? And how do I best navigate that anxiety? Like, because there is an inherent, like, for me, again, personally, going to other people and saying, hey, I like what you do. I would like to be a part of this thing as well. Again, for me, I get really in my own head about it because I feel like there's this sort of like unspoken rule that you can't engage with other people unless you're at like a similar level to them, in terms of like either notoriety or stats or whatever. And from both lenses, being the person wanting to reach out and the person that is being reached out to, regardless of their intention, whether it be entirely good or it is nefarious by nature, is trying to make those positive interpersonal connections while just navigating that monster. Like, how do you know what are like the early signs of someone that's trying to either take advantage of your platform and springboard into something else? How do you deal with the anxiety of trying to make that genuine connection with someone? Are genuine connections even possible in the space because of the inherent lack of trust that seems to permeate the platform? It makes for just a really difficult situation to navigate. Again, coming from my own perspective, I can't speak on
Yeah, I mean, I think you're
the
describing
platform
it's
as
kind
a
of like
whole.
this is like all celebrity-based relationships, right? Is trying to figure out like who's being genuine versus who's trying to use you versus,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think that when it comes to Twitch, I think that interpersonal relationships they can be both good and bad. It just it depends entirely on the initial. I mean, that's with any fucking relationship. But the thing that defines it is again that nefarious approach or that genuine approach. And the thing that I kind of think of when I think of a positive interpersonal connection when it comes to Twitch is any sort of authentic relationship that doesn't prioritize a financial or social gain first. Because I put more value in making a genuine relationship than I do with any sort of gain that can come about from whatever it is that you might be engaging in. And that, that can be literally anyone. That kind of shit can apply to, mods, people that want to mod for you, people that want to be your close friends, streamers, viewers, whatever. Like it's not strictly like streamer to streamer or anything, but from the lens of streamer to streamer, do you think that like with the current Twitch space, the social space of Twitch, that trying to build an authentic relationship that doesn't prioritize that financial or social gain first is even something that's likely to happen? Or do you think that most people form like they go at it from the pure business standpoint? Because like to be on Twitch is to be in a competitive space.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Right.
most people probably approach it from a networking business standpoint. That seems to be the case, especially as streamers start to grow.
So is that how you would say that like people who want to reach out and connect with other streamers that's how it should be is to try to approach that in more of a business way instead of like
I mean, you have to do whatever you want to do. It's up to you to figure that out. A lot of people navigate looking for business relationships, and that's what they do. And if you want to like further your career and everything, you can do that. Other people navigate based on like friendships. That's kind of what I like to do. I like to see who I can be friends with, and then that's more enjoyable for me. But I mean, like what your priority is going to be, it depends on where you're at in life, depends on what your priorities for streaming, depends on what kind of people you like to associate with. Like it super depends. If you want to play Among Us with your friends and do that all day, you can do that. If you want to try to get into like the big Among Us lobbies and further your career, you can do that. That's like a super goal oriented thing. Like what is your goal with forming new connections and friends? It just depends. Yeah.
I think that goal can often align with the general idea of wanting to develop the relationship first, which I understand. Like you can't be friends with everyone. Like you just can't. And trying to go at every single interaction that you have with anyone on the platform ever of I want to be your friend is just not feasible. There's gonna be business relationships. There's gonna be the interpersonal, the inner circle, all that. But the thing that I guess just to pull from my own experience, I mean, even recently, when we first incepted this idea of having this conversation or doing this kind of structured discussion, when we landed on the first topic of just navigating Twitch relationships, like what does it mean to be on the platform and try and like maintain relationships on this space? I reached out to a few people, and Evie reached out to a few people, and I didn't reach out to. I tried to stay within my own circle because I didn't want. I was very afraid of being in a position where it's like, kind of what I had already described. And when when people came back and said, "Hey, I can't do this via time or whatever," and Evie came back and said that you would want to have this conversation, I was immediately stricken with anxiety about it because it plays into that idea of I don't want to ever be in a position where I am perceived as being a leech to
Yeah, but who
anyone.
cares? I mean, it's gonna happen. Like there's nothing you can
and,
do
you know,
about it. Like
people,
I don't think that's worth
people,
stressing over because it's always going to be a thing that could come up. You'll only handicap yourself if you're so worried about that. Like obviously you should be somewhat cognizant of how people view you. You know, like if you put out a tweet and you tweet like the 5 biggest viewer streamers on Twitch asking for something, then like okay, sure, you look really
right.
bad there. But I mean, otherwise, what you're basically saying is you could never interact with somebody that has a larger platform than yours because you're worried about being perceived as a leech. Like why would you do that, right? You're just handicapping yourself.
From my perspective, it comes from the lens of I'm not allowed to reach out to anyone that isn't that isn't at my same level. So like usually I average anywhere between like 60 to like 80, sometimes 100 people, right? So when I was reaching out to people, I was kind of hitting in that same ballpark because I thought I came at it from the perspective of this is what I like, this is the ceiling, this is the limit of what I am realistically able to reach out to, right? And so looking at it again from that lens, being approached by Evie and saying, "Hey, Destiny wants to have this conversation with us," it was kind of like a circumstance of like, "Holy shit, no, that's not in my ballpark." And is that a detriment to anyone? Because I feel like this is something that is quite common, that people feel like they're not allowed to reach out to certain people because they aren't in that same bracket.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, it happens. I'm probably more unique in that I'll talk to most people because I don't care that much. But I mean, hey, all you can do is shoot your shot. If they don't respond, then who cares? Reach out to them when you're more popular in the future, right? Like,
Right.
To me,
Do you think that there's? Go ahead, Evie.
I was gonna say, to me, the way I feel is that, like if you know yourself and know like where you're coming from, and like are confident with that, I think the stress of worrying about what the other person might think of you or what their perception of you, like if you're confident in and have like knowledge of like who you are as a person, I think that that's something that becomes like less of a fear, because if somebody sits there and thinks something of you and you know it's not true, like you can kind of sit easy with that. I feel like.
Right. And I do recognize that the things that I do feel regarding this are largely personal. Sorry. But it is something that stems from, again, that, you know, I don't want to be perceived that way, which is, like I said, it's my own thing. But also the seeming prevalence that it seems to be like a pretty common thing, that people will reach out to those that are bigger than them to try to use them as a stepping stone to get somewhere else, right?
yeah, sure, it happens all the time. Yeah.
And I've had this. You know, I would have people that would come in and would, you know, blatantly fucking just promo their shit like while I'm doing my thing, and it never feels good, you know, being in that position. You said that you've had experiences yourself regarding this.
Yeah, of course.
Would you care to go into any of them? If
I mean,
it's
a lot of the
totally fine.
huge like lefty kind of like debate streamers came out of my like community, right? Vosh and Hassan both came out of my community and more or less like, I don't want to say totally backstabbed because that makes me sound spiteful, but like call me like a rapist, pedophile, or say I'm like crazy or whatever. Like, so I mean, like, yeah, people definitely. I mean, this is just how the internet works, right?
So, looking at those, is there anything that you could say that would, like, as like a word of warning, I guess? Like, how do you navigate that? How do you
You just have to like. I mean,
know?
it is what it is. It'll happen. If you're paralyzed about like worrying about these types of things, then this space is probably not a good space for you to spend a lot of time in, because it's going to happen. There's nothing you can do to predict it every time. There are going to be friends that you think are your friends, but in reality, they're just trying to use you to climb to the next thing. There's no way to safeguard against all of this. If that's something that's going to severely bother you, then yeah, this is not the space, I think, for.
Well, it's not so much that like. I think that actually that provides a little bit of a clarity that I just wouldn't be privy to because I haven't been on the platform that long. You know, I've only been here for just a year and a day. So I'm not privy to certain information or certain things as you would, right? Being on the platform for 12 fucking years. And to hear that, it's kind of a sad thing, I think, that like to hear that it's so prevalent that you just kind of have to expect it. And so then that lends itself to the idea of like, if it's going to happen all the fucking time, how can you trust anyone? How do you even open yourself up to be vulnerable?
It's like a human. You shouldn't open yourself to be vulnerable to like coworkers. That's probably always a bad idea. But I mean, like this isn't like unique to streaming. This is like the way of the world, right? like in high school, you know, there are some people that are popular or that are friends with the popular kids. There are other people that are, you know, friends with you until something happens because you're varsity or because you made a team or like, I mean, that just it's just how people work. Like, yeah, I don't that's not unique to streaming. That's like everything. Yeah.
Call it a little bit of naivety on my part then.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just how people are.
I've always tried to operate from the idea of that, like I try to look at the best in anyone.
People are very cliquey and they are very much like into that mentality. They chase social status and everything like pretty predictably in most areas of life, I think.
So you would say that the whole sentence that high school never ends is 100% true.
Correct. High school is always ever present in our lives. It's not that high school never ends. It's just that once it begins, that's like it's setting the standard for all the social interactions for the rest of your life.
Right.
And anybody that's worked in any coworker environment knows this. Anybody that has experience in even the business world is like pretty similar. You get dumb shit like this happening all the time. It's not much you can do about it. You either play the game or you don't, and then you get fucked. Yeah. Yes. That's basically all you can do. Yeah.
An eloquent way of putting it.
I don't like to play the game, so I get fucked, but I've got a really big fan base, so I can afford to do it. So it just depends on like where you're at, what your goals are. Like you don't have to play the networking game if you don't want to, but your viewership is going to suffer because of it. So again, it's just up to you to figure out like how do you want to engage with the platform.
A sort of a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of a thing.
No, not at all. It's not damned if you do. It's there's just trade-offs. You just have to understand what you're getting and what you're giving, basically. Yeah.
What I mean by that is if you engage in it, you're going to get backstabbed. So in that sense, damned if you do. And if you don't engage in that behavior, you're damned if you don't, because you're not going to see that growth that you want or potentially that you want for your platform.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, you could be the one doing the backstabbing too. You don't have to be the victim all the time.
True. I suppose so. I kind of, again, hearing that, it kind of makes me think that like being on the social, I've never thought about it from that perspective before. I've never thought about this being something that extends beyond, and I know that it does happen. Like you hear about, you know, people like, I don't know. My only frame of reference is like movies and shit. And again, this is like I said, where I said like maybe my naivety is coming into play here, where like people will backstab their coworker to get the fucking promotion or whatever, right? Or
that shit happens in real life all the fucking time, of course, yeah.
And like again, personally, I've never seen that. So like, and I always try to operate from the frame of mind that like everyone wants to do good. Everyone wants to put good into the world.
No.
I don't think
people generally have a set of interests that they're concerned about, and they want to kind of like advocate for the things that they care about, and that's like basically what people are looking to do. People are pretty selfish, but they're pretty predictably selfish. Like, yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Evie, you queued up for a sec.
I was gonna say, do you think that these people are aware of what they're doing, or do you think that they come up with justifications for it?
Everybody is the good guy in their own headcanon. Nobody is doing anything bad or anything like that. There'll always be justifications or reasons or excuses for why people do the things they do. But I mean, like our social systems are really good at reinforcing themselves, right? Even people that don't want to be cliquey end up being cliquey. Why? Because if they're not cliquey and their friends are all cliquey, well, then their friends aren't going to hang out with them anymore. So I mean, like it is what it is, you know? Like all these systems reinforce themselves like really well, whether you like them or not.
So as someone who tries not to, I guess, align themselves with that sort of mentality, am I shooting myself in the foot by not engaging in that?
Yeah, you could be.
Especially when it comes to...
absolutely, for sure. There will be streamers that nobody else likes, and if you start associating with them, you'll get shit for it. There'll be streamers that everybody likes, and if you don't like that streamer, people give you shit for it. Like, yeah, definitely, it can happen.
Just makes for I think it makes for a pretty sad experience then.
I mean, that's the experience of life though, right? I mean
I like to think that life is pretty fucking good. Like sure, shit things happen.
I think life is really good. I'm not saying life is bad. I'm just saying that people are predictably.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think people are like predictably selfish, and that just seems to be how they function in most areas of life. Yeah.
Do you think that that selfishness is a sort of inherent thing, or do you think that we're sort of taught that
Probably
as
a
we kind of
combination
grow?
of both. I mean, we'd probably have our in-group preferences or some evo biological explanation or whatever, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm sure there's some combination of like socially we reinforce certain groups, and biologically we're probably wired to prefer certain groups. Like, it just is what it is.
Okay. I'm curious, and again, this is a little bit of a thought experiment. It's just like I would like to think that like when I look back on like my childhood and the friends that I had and kind of growing up, that I didn't really see a whole lot of like nefariousness or like any sort of selfish behaviors, and maybe that's just my own unique experience. But I think that we as people we're very driven by the things that, like as you said, we're driven by the things that kind of light that fire in us, right? The things that we want to pursue, we're going to pursue those relentlessly, and we're not really going to have a second thought to according to the way that you've described it, that we're not really going to have a second thought to the people around us. We're just going to pursue that thing, right? Even if it comes to the detriment of other people.
Yeah.
Do you think would it be misguided to say that people don't do that in the majority, and that most people they try to be conscientious of those around them while they are pursuing that thing? Or do you think people just like blinders zero in on that
No,
thing?
that'll be
It's
blinder
just
zero.
right.
It'll be whatever the socially acceptable amount of courteousness is. Will be what people apply, I think.
So it's
I don't
almost
think
song and dance,
people
if you will.
people don't go out of their way very far for people unless they have like some really good reason to or something big to gain from it. I think that's pretty normal.
All right.
But hey, that's just my experience, my observations. If some part of your life is dramatically different, then hey.
What experiences have you had that kind of have lended that sort of thought process? If I can prod there,
Like
if
every
you're willing to share.
like every single experience in life. I don't know what else to say. Like in every environment, like I think people are just like pretty predictably selfish. In everything, it can be high school social groups, it can be work environments, it can be streaming. Like, yeah, I don't know.
That's just, I don't know. It's interesting to hear from me just because, like, again, I haven't had that same frame of reference. It's most of the experiences that I had have been very conscientious and graceful to the people around them. And so looking, coming from my perspective, kind of growing up and today, when I look at the platform, or when I look, even just kind of like in my own head, kind of thinking about the relationships that I've had at work and stuff, I can kind of see where you're coming from. Well, not kind of, I can. But I still like to think that most people would genuinely, like in my brain, I see there being more benefit in trying to make a genuine connection with someone than trying to step on them to get ahead of them.
Sure,
Like,
I feel
there's
the
more
same way.
value in
Yeah,
that.
I feel that way. That's why I try to form genuine connections with people. But I mean, like, I think
Yeah.
most of the time, overwhelmingly, I get super fucked for it. I don't think that's like ever
So-
benefited me from a business point of view. But I've got a really large platform, so I can afford to take like those types of
Right.
risks. And yeah,
So would you say you're in the minority? You would say that you're in the minority in that thought process then?
well, how
That-
many other people of my size responded to you for an interview like this?
Well, I didn't reach out to anyone your size, so I can't comment. I'm grateful that you're here having the conversation to begin with.
Yeah, I'm not like holding it over you, but I'm just saying that like I think
Oh, I
generally
know,
people
I
are
know.
just looking for ways to like, but I don't like. Don't misunderstand me when I say this. I'm not trying to say like people are evil, horrible creatures. I'm just saying they're predictably selfish, and they don't view themselves as evil or horrible. They'll always have like good reasons in their head for why they're as selfish as they are, and those reasons are going to be because they're selfish. I think Vosh is a really good example of a really intelligent person that's able to tell like pretty complicated lies to themselves about why they are the way they are. So Vosh has like policies to where he will not interact with anybody smaller than him. He will only interact with fan bases that he has something to materially gain from. But his self-justification for it is like, well, I don't want to grow the fan base of somebody that might spread abhorrent views to society. So that's the way that he views it. So he's basically he's in a scenario where he won't he says a scenario where he'll never interact with a smaller creator, and he's always gaining something, or cloud or networking or whatever, from people that he's interacting with. But he's got like a reason that feels good for him to do it. So he's not like a bad guy there. If anything,
Right.
he's being a good guy. He's being responsible with his platform. So I think like most people will do that. They have stories that they tell themselves to make sure that they always remain like the good guy in their head and everything. And yeah.
I don't inherently align the word selfish to being an inherent, like, it's just, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that being selfish for your, like, boundaries are inherently selfish, right?
Yeah.
You put down a boundary for someone, like, that in and of itself is a selfish act. And I don't think that people engaging in a way that is inherently selfish is a bad thing. It's just, again, coming from the perspective of, like, when that is the norm, right? When everyone kind of operates from this lens of, okay, tit for tat, like, what's yours over there, I want some of that, and you can have some of mine, but only if we're on this equal footing or whatever, like you had explained with Bosch. I guess the larger question is, like, why, which is a completely, I don't think it can be answered, but it begs the question, why? Like, why do people operate under that parameter, and why does it seem to be so so present?
I mean, which,
Is there like a social structure to Twitch in a way where, like, if you are of X viewership, then you're not allowed to interact with anyone who's of Y viewership until you get to that threshold?
yeah, because you want to have like the most viewers. Like that's always what you're after. You're just trying to get viewership, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. That's the whole purpose of the platform. Be it, growing your community or trying to make something just more successful. Like, yeah, I would say so.
Do you think that there's a way that, or do you think people can have like close personal like connections and relationships, and also use each other in a selfish way? I might be wording that in a way that kind of makes it sound bad, but
I mean, yeah, but the thing is that at the end of the day, there's always going to come a time where you have to choose between like your personal relationship and your business relationship. For a lot of the time, these things can align. Like most of the big streamers hang out with each other because of viewership level. Almost every big streamer, I would say 99% of big streamers will only hang out with other big streamers, but they could also have like genuine friendships as well. But eventually, there's going to come a time where it's like, should I keep hanging out with this person or not? And most people will elect to go with the bigger streamer to hang out with. But like, it's not, that doesn't mean that they hate everybody. They're not genuinely friends with anybody too. Like they can still be friends with people too, Like I think that like, I think that like XQC, I think probably hangs out with people that are generally bigger streamers, but I don't think that XQC like hates them, Like I'm sure he likes Hasan or the other people that he plays games to hang out with. I don't think he's like, oh, I fucking hate these guys, but I have to hang out with them because of my job. Like you probably form friendships and they're like beneficial in work related ways as well. That'd be me. Guess on that, yeah.
So you would say that people prioritize their relationships based on the inherent financial value
That's probably the
they
more
provide
important
them?
thing. I think so, yeah.
Well, that kind of touches back on the thing that I had said at the beginning, which is like, why do people seem to prioritize those relationships first? Like, again, operating from the lens of, you can have a selfish relationship that is also, like, you can have a genuine relationship that is also inherently selfish. And
Why
that
do
you
people
guys
prioritize money over friendship, or?
No, that's not the question. It's why do people seem to prioritize that immediately when, if they kept like, from my mentality, right? There's more power in as we'd already said, a genuine relationship that grows into something where it can be also financially beneficial for each party.
Not
right?
necessarily. There are definitely going to be times where you're choosing between one or another. So like I have close friends in my community, a guy named Dan, a guy named Lucas. These are people that I consider friends that I've been friends with for a long time, but like it hurts my career probably actively to engage with these people. Like I'd be better off trying to have friends and talk to other big streamers. So it's not like a mutually beneficial thing where it's like, oh, I'm like, my business is growing and I'm doing this at the same time. Like that's not true, but I prioritize them because I think they're my friends and I like doing that. I like playing games with them more. It's more fun for me. But like if I wanted to prioritize my business, I would be trying to play games or get into lobbies with like other like larger streamers or players instead of doing things with them.
Right. So I think that it would be safe to say that both you and I kind of have a similar mentality in that regard.
Yeah, probably,
That you prioritize the relationship over the financial gain.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of touch on that a little bit more, and forgive me if we've already gone over this, ADHD brain. It's a fucking mess. What is it like being in your position? As someone that people would look to use in that sort of way to springboard off of you, via, doing something with you and then completely abandoning you afterwards, or whatever the case may be. I don't really have anything to pull on here.
It is what it is. I don't really think about it much. I mean, like, for some people it could bother them, but like, it's the nature of the game, I guess. I don't care. It is what it is.
It's interesting to hear that, because like I feel like that would be an inherently, like, it would be a hard thing to kind of go through. Right?
I feel like I have a
would be-
decent enough understanding of human nature, and I'm emotionally disconnected enough from most people that it just doesn't bother me. I don't care. But I can understand for a lot of people how that would be like really troubling. If your view of the world is that people form friendships and relationships based on who they genuinely enjoy having around, and that's important to most people, like if you've, I guess, fooled yourself into thinking that's how most people work, then like that reality of what the streaming world is probably going to be pretty jarring. But I mean, I'm not under any illusion that that's what most streaming stuff is like. So yeah, I don't care.
So
It's just,
yeah. So you don't really do anything to protect yourself from any kind of experience like that. You just kind of are like, well, if it happens, it happens. Fuck it, whatever. Kind of move on, kind of thing.
Yeah, basically. I mean, as long as I feel like I'm having fun at the time, it's whatever.
Is it a common thing for you?
Pretty common, yeah.
Do you think that lends itself to, like, because it's so common, that's the reason why you feel the way that you do about it?
No, I felt this way from the start, but I'm a pretty detached person.
Really?
I'm a relatively unique person in terms of that. That's not like something I would tell everybody to just copy my personality in terms of that. I think I'm pretty unique there.
Right. Okay. To branch off of that further, as someone who does prioritize the relationship, the genuine connection, how can someone like myself, who's just started out in this kind of world, or Evie, how can we try to make those genuine connections with the peers that we do have on the platform, in a way that is alleviating to the anxieties that they might be feeling about this person, this random person reaching out to them, while being respectful of the thing that they have in the space that they have, without taking into consideration that there is this inherent nature that you need to be on a similar like viewer count kind of like threshold, or like you need to be in the same social threshold. Is there anything that anyone can do when they're talking to someone who is bigger to try and, or who, regardless of the gap, right? Is there anything that individual can do to alleviate any sort of anxieties that might come along with that? Because I would say it's pretty safe to say that you're in the minority in that regard.
Yeah, I don't
You
think there's
give a
anything
fuck.
you can do, because if you try to do anything like that, I'm going to view it as like being really suspicious. Like, if you message me like, hey, like I really want to be friends or whatever, I'm not trying to use you or anything like that, I would instantly assume that, like,
Right, that
these are
kind
the
of a-
types of things that like you can only really prove these things with actions. You can't like
Right.
there's not a thing you can say or something like that,
I guess what I'm more trying to touch on isn't like just the first contact, right? It's more of just the y'all good?
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're all good. Is it League?
No, don't worry about it, what it is, okay?
Okay.
I had to kill 100% of this fucking moron flash thing, but I don't care. Sorry, keep going. Don't let my facial expressions distract you.
All good, all good. I just know the pain. It's more so the.
You were
if
talking
that
about
is
how
the
to
nature-
alleviate concerns
Yeah,
that like
yeah.
people are.
If
yeah.
if that's the nature of the entire platform, right? If that's the way that most people kind of like view those engagements, what is something that anyone could do, not just like me or Evie, literally anyone that's trying to break into this space, like what can they do to alleviate any of those feelings that might come along with those interactions that they are having?
Yeah,
with these
this is like an action oriented thing. You just have to build over time like positive interactions with someone. That's all you can do. There's not going to be like a shortcut there, I don't think. Yeah.
Well, I'm not asking for like a shortcut. I'm just saying like the best way would be like, as an example, to be like super active and engaging with their community and being a part of the things that they're doing.
Not
and they're
necessarily.
engaging in.
No.
No.
Nope. You just have to build it over time. I had somebody that used to come into my Discord almost all the time to talk with me and my community, and they weren't even streaming while we were doing things. But as soon as that person found like somebody bigger that kind of became more popular, they hopped over and they did the exact same thing to that person. So there's no
Right.
there's nothing you can do. You just have to. It's just a thing over time that your trust will be earned or whatever. Like yeah. The way that I always say it is between this is like true of real life and of and Twitch, which I guess is also real life. I always say like you can't really trust somebody until you've gone through like a real situation with them. That's when you know like a person. So when some shit
Right.
has come up and like there's some fucked up shit happening and like now it's time to choose sides and are they gonna fuck you over or are they gonna support you or whatever? That's when you
Right.
figure out like the merit or the metal of somebody. Yeah, but until then, it's all just words, and who cares? Like, they could be also being your friend and networking at the same time. You have no way of knowing.
Right. I was more. I didn't really expect an answer from that. I was just kind of thinking from the lens of like, is there anything that anyone could really do, or
No.
is it just kind of the nature of just like it just comes with the territory. You need to be okay with having those anxieties.
No, because the
And,
thing is,
you
the
know,
goal is like the same, right? Like, if somebody wants
Right.
to use you, and they want to use you for a please kill him. Sorry, he's gonna die. If somebody wants to use you for like streaming related stuff to network off of you or whatever, what are they gonna do? They're gonna try to build a relationship with you in your community. If somebody wants to be a
Right.
friend of yours and they want to like grow a friendship, what are they gonna try to do? They're gonna be a friend with you in your community. Right? It's like the same actions.
Right.
So there's no way you're gonna be able to tell until there comes some choice where they have to make a decision between like, am I going to do the friendship thing or am I going to do the business thing? And then that's when you'll be able to tell like where is a person's loyalties or what are they actually after. But you have to have one of those situations come up before you can truly know. Otherwise it's all just words, doesn't mean anything.
Right. And those actions themselves speaks incredible volumes, any more than any word ever could. Yeah. Um. Yeah, like I said, I didn't expect any sort of like genuine like he used this one trick and you can fucking like it's just not gonna fucking happen. But I was just curious from more your perspective, like what are things that you personally see that are just like an immediate like not. But you kind of already explained that parameter or that not parameter that like how you kind of like the people that do that kind of shit like. You've given your example. Evie, do you have anything that you want to add?
I was gonna say, are there any ways that you have in mind that you can like test for this, or like
I mean, you could start like creating elaborate ploys to fuck someone over, I guess, if you wanted to
Fucking 12D chess, be like,
do some shit like that. Yeah, get a more popular streamer to message a less popular streamer, ask them if they have any dirt on the other one or whatever, but you're like impersonating it all behind the scenes and then see what they say. I don't know,
Wow,
it's like
and then-
weird shit. If you want to get into some
then you're
weird...
encroaching on like paranoia level of.
Yeah, I mean, there's the only way to test it is have like a serious situation come up. Like that's the only thing you can do.
Right. It's interesting to hear. I've never heard that perspective before. And like I said, maybe it comes from a lens of naivety on my part, just because of the experiences I've had in my life, and that just not being indicative of the popular experience that most people have. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like that kind of opens up to the idea of like, am I setting myself up for failure, trying to create these kinds of personal relationships where
Yep.
it's not founded on
Yeah, if you're trying to do it, there's no way you can know. You can't. Like you're
Yeah.
setting yourself up for disaster. You just have to approach everything with an open mind, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That's all. That's literally all you can do. There's no other way out of that. Otherwise, celebrities
just
would never
an-
have these problems. This is why celebrities don't
Right.
make friends with normal people, because there's always that risk. They just don't do it. Or why really wealthy
Right.
people won't talk to other people that aren't really wealthy, because they never know, right? Because you can't know. There's
Yeah.
no shortcut to this. You know.
I've always kind of thought that the reason why, and again, this is coming from the lens of someone who hasn't experienced anything like this before, so could be incorrect. That your social bracket, if you will, like where you sit, so you have like the general public, which would be Like the general population would be like on the bottom of this pyramid or whatever. And then as you start elevating into the social spaces that you're active in, be it YouTube, Twitch, whatever, you get pushed up by the people that choose to support you into that next bracket. And then that becomes your normal bracket of engagement. And then the more and more that happens, the smaller and smaller that window gets, and the smaller and smaller that bracket gets with who you feel like you can safely engage with and you can actually have a relationship with. And I guess is that not correct? Is that, or is it partly correct?
Well, I mean, you can have a relationship with anybody you want to, right? Like, the only reason you wouldn't want to is because you're choosing not to. The largest creator in the world could be friends with the smallest creator in the world if they really wanted to, no? Like,
True. But it's the reason why that it gets smaller and smaller is because there's that inherent distrust, right? Would you say that's safe to
yeah,
say?
it could be. Or there's less business opportunity if you're friends with, like, really small streamers. Why would you waste your time? Some people would just want to climb the ladder, right?
Right. They're on the money grind. Sure.
Mhm.
Do you think that there's an inherent benefit to having purely business relationships over personal relationships?
Yeah. You succeed well in your business. That's
Like,
why people have business relationships, right?
That was way too open-ended on my part.
Yeah, I think there's predictable pros and cons to literally everything. Yeah. If you prioritize business relationships, you're gonna have better business. If you prioritize personal relationships, you're probably gonna have more fun
Right.
in your personal life. Like that's
Right.
yeah.
It's all about
I
like
guess-
finding out what you're like looking for in like what your goals are, right?
Yeah, like if you're coming at it from the lens of like I only want to do this to make money, then you're going to prioritize every relationship that you want, or every relationship you're going to foster is going to be purely business focused. I guess what I'm more trying to get at with that question would be obviously there's a need for both, because you need to have the personal relationships to kind of help you in the times that are a little turbulent, in the times that you're going to need that support, right? But do you think that when it comes to specifically navigating Twitch as a platform, that there is like, are you? It's so hard to try and word this. Sorry. From my frame of reference, when I see like a personal relationship, I'm not talking about something that's like strictly with like someone who's smaller, right? Like I feel like a personal relationship could be with someone who's of the same size, someone who's bigger, XYZ, right? But when you're dealing with those relationships, based on what you've said, it would be better if you treated every relationship as a business relationship, because you're not going to be vulnerable to a potential backstab. You're not going to, you're already closed off. It's business. So if they choose to do something that's going to hurt you, whatever, right?
Yeah, this is why
It's
people
kinda
say
like-
that you should like don't treat your business partners like friends. This is where that advice comes from. Yeah.
So do you think that people who are on the platform should not prioritize getting any personal relationships from the platform and mainly focus on the stuff outside of the platform for that personal social support, and strictly only look for business relationships on Twitch?
Probably, yeah. That's what most people recommend. In a business environment, you're only looking for business relationships, not personal friendships.
Fair. That is fair. That also brings in some other kind of tangential thoughts, because like I think that one of the allures to having a personal relationship with someone who is on the platform is they get it, right? They get what the experience is. They get like all of
that
the
would be
struggles
a
that may inherently
that's a
come
pro.
along with it,
Yeah, for sure.
right? And like you're not going to be able to bring that to someone who's outside of that space, and they're just gonna be like, well, I don't fucking know. Just like they're not going to have anything that they can respond with that's going to be any sort of like meaningful to that, because they haven't experienced those things that you might be struggling with. So I feel like you're kind of like if you choose that path, you are inherently alienating yourself to a degree.
Yep, it could be an alienating line of work for sure. Being like any kind of like quasi internet celebrity figure. Yeah.
Do you think that the nature of the social platforms is an inherently isolating thing,
Yeah, of course, for sure.
and that like the bigger that you get, you, as I said before, that social circle gets smaller and smaller, right?
Yep.
So that brings up the other question: is do you think that a lot of the people that are finding immeasurable success on Twitch are also finding that they are oftentimes feeling lonely?
Yeah, for sure. It can be a thing with big streamers. Yeah. There's a lot of
Do
big
you
streamers that
experience
have
that?
like no, but I'm very unique in that sense. I'm not like the normal comparison. Yeah.
I'm just asking. Um,
But I also prioritize like my friendships and what makes me happy over like doing the network climbing thing.
right, and that's kind of the whole reason. Like that's where I started from. My whole perspective was just trying to create a space that I would want to hang out in and just do whatever the fuck I wanted. And not really worry about that social game because, again, looking at it and seeing the difference in how I view just general relationships and seeing how the platform kind of operates and it being kind of like the polar of that. It wasn't something that I really wanted to engage in. But I also recognize that there is an inherent value in engaging in those things. It's just a matter of like whether or not it's worth it to you, the individual, to put yourself on that line. And it's interesting, like I said, going back to what you had said prior about like every relationship, you never know if anyone could backstab you, and there's no like any way, there's no way to like safeguard other than to just be like every relationship is a business relationship. It's a bit sad, I think, just to have that observation and to have that like reinforced by someone who has been on the platform for a fucking decade. And you know, again, maybe it's playing into the naivety of it all. Maybe I'm naive for trying to think that like a good relationship is likely from this space because of that inherent nature. Do you think it's still worth trying?
To
Or do you think
succeed
that
on the
it's-
platform or to form personal relationships?
Well, I mean, for both. Do you think
Worth
that it's
trying. I
still
mean,
worth
it's
trying?
it's all going to depend on what your goals are. That's why I said it's all about like your goals. If you want to be a streamer and you want to do it, then I mean, obviously the only way to do it is to be a streamer. And far as is it
Right.
worth try to form personal relationships? I mean, you can, but you're risking yourself getting fucked if like just somebody decides they can use you for a clout and then they climb you on the ladder and there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to weigh the pros and cons of both sides. If you want to be more personable, you can maybe have closer relationships with people. You run the risk of getting fucked in the future. If you want to play the business side, then you might fuck over other people, but you've got more to gain in a networking sense, but you might not form as close relationships with other people. So it's just, you just have to figure out what you want to prioritize there in your life.
Right. So you would say that there isn't any sort of kind of like one overarching answer to this. It's very nuanced.
No, it's not.
It is-
It's not even nuanced. It's not that there's no working answer. It's just a matter of like, it's kind of like saying like, what's the best diet for me? Well, I mean, it
Right.
depends. Are you like a weightlifter? Are you a sumo wrestler?
Right.
Are you, like
Right.
a long distance runner? Are you just trying to lose weight? Like, there's not going to be an answer there, right? Like, what's the best type of relationship to form on Twitch? Like, the answer is going to be pretty simple, but it just depends on what you want to do. Yeah.
I meant more like nuanced in the sense of like what your own personal drives are.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say nuance. I'd say it's relatively simple. It just depends on. It's just going to vary based on what your goals are. Yeah.
Right. So, real quickly, I want to touch on just the external side of things because we did bring it up very briefly. When it comes to like balancing the external relationships, as someone who is on the platform, what do you think are like the biggest like pitfalls and traps that people end up falling into as they pursue these kinds of things, if they have any sort of romantic or personal friend group that's outside of that space? For me personally, like the things that kind of come to mind is that like because of the nature of the social race, the social networking race, the more you're on that space, the better it is for you. Obviously to a detriment to a degree, but you're encouraged to keep running this race all the time.
Yeah, it's the same of like any like hardcore career you pursue. People that do law shit, if you want to make partner, people that are engineers can dump a fuck ton of hours into what they do. Yeah, that's true of every big like career oriented thing. Yeah.
So what are some of the biggest pitfalls that people end up kind of stumbling into when it comes to trying to balance those relationships that are external while running that race? Do you think
I mean,
that...
the same as any other thing. You could put too much time into work and your personal relationships could suffer. You could get too emotionally involved in your work and then your health suffers. I mean, you can neglect aspects of your basic health, like you don't sleep or eat enough. It just depends on, I guess, how you're going forward with it.
And to then go off of that, do you think that there is... trying to think of how to word this. And it is just not coming to me. Dude, I'm telling you, like, tangential here, I fucking hate my brain sometimes. I fucking hate it. ADHD is just a nightmare.
You should take something that I do in conversations, especially debates, is I'll just take notes. I usually have like a notepad and I'll just be typing and writing shit. So that if something enters my brain and I don't get to it very quickly, I'll probably lose it. But I just like open a notepad and just start typing things so that I don't forget it, or I'll remind myself what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good bit of advice there. Should do that in the future. I don't know. I think that I mean, it's an entirely separate discussion talking about like the external relationships, specifically when they come to like the romantic side of things and how do you balance that plus the streaming. And there's not really enough time to kind of go into that. I know that you got to go pretty shortly here. So I probably forgot some shit. Sorry if this was a little bit rough, a little bit scatterbrained.
It's all good.
I think I'm just checking over any sort of last minute things that I had written down here. Evie, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. One thing that I did have written down here, which I think is kind of interesting, and this we've kind of touched on a little bit, and this is where that like the benefit of a selfish relationship that can also be beneficial across both people, where people consent to using each other for their own gain, right?
Sure, but nobody makes those types of like consensual trade-offs because nobody wants to acknowledge that that's what's happening.
Why do people not want to acknowledge it?
Because people don't see themselves. People see themselves as everybody sees themselves in life as being the hero of their own internal narrative. Nobody sees themselves as being a bad person or using people. So nobody's going to like, in order to make that trade-off with somebody else, you'd have to acknowledge like, oh, I guess I am kind of, just using somebody here for, whatever. Nobody wants to view themselves that way. So they're not even going to be capable of like making that type of deal with somebody. Yeah.
Isn't that kind of what collaborations are to a varying degree? Like when people agree to do like if there's no history between those two individuals, and
that's not how they view it. They always view it as like, oh, I'm playing like games with friends or whatever. That's like how like all of offline TV says it, or all of OTK says it. Like some people might be a little bit more honest, but like
wouldn't you say that is basically just them consenting to using each other to further their own personal platforms?
No, because they don't view it that way, or they don't view themselves that way. They view it as like just playing games with friends.
Do you think, as an outsider, do you think that that's like a realistic way to look at what's happening there, like at that dynamic?
No, I mean, I view it a little bit more like realpolitik or whatever. Like I think that people are doing things to further their careers, but I've already said that that's how I kind of view things.
I kind of think of it as like a purely transactional relationship where both people know what they're getting from the experience, and it's just kind of like yeah, we're using each other for what we have, but that's fine. Which, like, I don't see anything wrong with that. Like, if that's what you want to do, and both people are like, yeah, sure. Like, what's the problem with calling it exactly that?
Sure.
I think it's interesting that people would shy away from calling it that, just because, like, it's not an inherently nefarious thing in nature. If both people are consenting to do that, then whatever, right? Okay. Well, that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that I forgot like half of the shit, but I appreciate you having the convo. you've definitely kind of opened my eyes on a couple of things that I never really would have considered, especially in regards to just like
Sorry, I died. Go ahead.
you're all good. Um, just in regards to just how to I've never considered just navigating the platform from purely a financial or business space or like frame rate, like or lens or whatever. It's only ever come from the idea of I just want to try and put good into the world, and I want to find people that want to do that with me. And I don't know, it's definitely provided a different perspective. I don't think it's one that I'm gonna particularly ever engage in because it's not me. But I think knowing that is the case, and that is the way that a lot of people see see the platform or just life in general. I think for me personally, it definitely makes me feel like a bit more prepared in that regard.
Sure.
And I'm sure that there's other people who have had these anxieties as well, that also are, a little bit put a little bit at ease that, okay, if this is the way that the platform functions, then this is how I need to operate within that platform and just do my best. And as you said, be ready for when shit hits the fan.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
And don't ever look at it from don't ever look at it from the lens of like I guess naivety, which is the way that I think that maybe I've been looking at it, is from this angle of no one actually wants to hurt anyone. Like I genuinely believe that people want to try and put as much good into the world as they can. But when it comes to just navigating this platform in general, or just as you had said in business and life, that it comes with the territory that people are gonna stab you in the back, and sort of walling yourself off from that and just knowing that it's going to happen rather than trying to prepare and anticipate for when that eventuality is going to come, at least for me, is it's a bit I think it's alleviating.
Okay. Yeah.
So I appreciate that. I appreciate the perspective.
No problem.
I think it's safe to say that we can leave it at this. I hope that you had fun in the discussion. I very much enjoyed hearing your thoughts on the matter. Evie, thank you for being here as well. Do you have anything that you want to add before we go?
I just wanted to say I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and everything.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. I don't know how to end this shit, so...
All right. Well, hey, I'll talk to you guys later, okay? All right, well, wait.
Have a good one, dude. Enjoy the rest of your game.
Yeah, see you later. Bye. Okay. Fuck. Are Eurodite and Mr. Girl still talking? This part is fucking horrible, dude. I shouldn't have gone over after the second time.
Right. And I guess like the issue is like, is it possible that if I went on like a bit of a campaign to defend him, which I'm, to be honest, not really interested in doing, would I be able to find 10 psychiatrists who agreed with me?
Okay, so given that that's been my experience, what should I... Well, I'd be curious. I kind of want you to do that. I'd be interested in you asking around if you know.
Yeah, that's fair. I've been approached by a couple of people. They also said like I don't want to be on camera, which is super fair. So I'd never name names. But yeah, I've been approached by a couple of people as well within the field who basically have said similar perspectives to me. But that's like the problem is like that's selection bias, right? Like it's quite likely.
A similar perspective saying what?
Basically that like, yeah, there's definitely some like ethically questionable stuff here and here where I've like outlined that I'm like, this is definitely like not great. And then I've been like, do you think overall though, like it's immoral enough to revoke his medical license? And most people have been like, no, like definitely not.
How much of his stuff have they watched?
I haven't asked them personally. They approached me, so I'm presuming probably some of it.
Okay, here's what I want. Are you willing to do this experiment? Or are you willing to do an experiment?
I
Before
can't
we
commit-
talk
I
about
will-
the experiment are you willing to do a experiment?
I'm not. I don't really commit to things that I'm not like.
No, I
aware
mean,
of.
are you open to hearing about an experiment?
Oh, for
that we-
sure.
that
I'm
we
totally
could do?
open to hearing anything. Yeah, I just won't
Okay.
commit unless I like. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to send you a 20 minutes of clips that I've compiled that I've been sending to concerned or whatever professionals. Just Dr. K and Reckful. And if you are willing to, this is an unlisted video, so I don't want you to send it to any like YouTubers or journalists or whatever.
For sure.
I'd be interested in you sending this
This
to
is-
anyone.
This is the clip that you send to people.
Yes. This is the stuff that people can't get through because they find it too disturbing. I'm interested in you sending this to any therapists or psychiatrists that you
The question
know.
is it cherry picked of like some of the things that you think are the worst
Yes,
possible?
it's the worst
Okay.
stuff.
So like that's kind of like my concern though, is like if you poison the well by showing them like only the worst available, like an ethics board is going to be like kind of quantitatively looking at like all everything, right?
Yeah.
So like like I could submit it to people. To be honest, if they don't respond that it's really negative,
Just people you know,
yeah.
like people who you know, who you have a rapport with already. I don't want you to submit it like willy nilly. Just anybody you know personally. Like I don't know if you have how many like colleague therapist relationships you have, but if you have people like that you could say like, hey, would you be willing to look at this? If they say yes, then send it to them, and then just see what they say. I'd be curious to see what response you get. And yes, the clips are cherry picked, but the cherry picking doesn't really matter to me in this case because the rules, there's no amount of context in my mind that can be added to make any of this okay to do on a stream. There's certain things you can never say or do with a client.
for sure. Like yes, obviously.
So are you willing to try this experiment or no? Or do you want to think about it?
It just feels like an incredibly biased experiment. Like, sure, I could send it. Like, again, I'm not super motivated. The thing is, like, I guess my concern here is that, like, you're kind of, I'm concerned
Well,
about,
why
like,
don't you watch it and then let me know?
Sure, that's fair. I can watch it. I'm afraid of rousing an angry mob. That's what I'm concerned of, and I'm not. I'm.
Oh,
unwilling to
you're okay.
participate in
I
that.
see. You don't
Yeah.
want them to turn around and start. Well, if anybody starts going like, you're afraid they're gonna. Okay.
At me?
I guess
No,
I would
no.
only send it
Not
to
my concern.
people. I'd only send it to people who you feel you can trust to not like publicly distribute it.
Yeah, that's true. It's not so much. So, here's the thing. I'll watch it for sure. I am concerned that like important context is missing because a lot of like people making claims against Dr. K, when I look at the actual like clip that they're talking about, as soon as you add context, it's way different, right?
Yeah,
But
that's-
like I said, I'm willing to watch it. My
Okay.
issue is not that I'm going to turn a righteous mob against me. That's not my concern. My
I know.
concern is that like I am concerned about like emotionally inflaming a righteous mob against Dr. K that is going to cause the like licensure board to
That's fine.
change
If you
the way
don't-
that they decide. And I'm not comfortable being part of stuff like that.
Okay. So then, as you see fit, just let me know what you decide. And I'm curious to see if people you know in the field would have a different reaction from the people that I know.
Right. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I'll think about it. Like I said, I'll watch the clips. There's not much more to do. Like, who knows? The clips could change my mind for all I know. Part of why I'm being distracted is I had somebody like passed on to me that mentioned that their medical licensing they work for like an ethics board, an IRB, which would be, so I'll just read you what they said. I work
Okay.
for an IRB and I am on a board, not as an expert in a specific scientific field, but as a regulatory compliance specialist. I just want to be clear that when you or Mr. Girl are saying ethics board, you're referring to a medical licensing board or an institutional review board for research ethics. They are different. I think we're obviously referring to the licensure board.
Medical
Yeah.
licensing board.
Basically said
I'm,
if it is an IRB,
I'm even going as far as trying to be a little vague about how I refer to the board because I don't want to direct people to it unintentionally.
that's fair. Which I think is actually like wise of you and in line of kind of like what I'm asking. I just like my main thing is I don't want you to like drive this bus. Like I understand that it's emotional. I don't want all of the decisions that you make around it to be only fueled by emotions because I think that it could fuel a mob. That's my concern.
Okay, so I want to turn public opinion against Dr. K. I want people
Yes.
to know that what he's doing is wrong, harmful, and that he's to some level culpable for Reckful's death.
What
Now,
if
now how
you
would I
doing that-
how would I go about doing that without creating an angry mob? This is an
I
interesting
don't
question. I haven't
know
thought
if you
about this.
should. I think, to be honest, we should like try to use like when it comes to like violations of like practice. I actually think that what we should do is like refer to the institutional system first, right? I think pushing public opinion is.
Well, I've already explained my problem with that. I don't want there to be there's already a knowledge gap between the rules, the professional rules, and the audience's understanding of them and why they're and like what he's really done. So in my experience, the professionals are like, oh Jesus Christ, he really harmed this person. It's unbearable for me to watch as a professional. But when normal people watch it, they're like, oh, he tried to help him. So I want to bridge that gap, and I
Oh, did this thing just die? Why is there so many internet problems? Oh.
the
Even if like all the way up the IRB decided, nope, this isn't an issue.
it would probably shake my foundations a little, and then I would need to reconcile that with the professionals that I know. They could start me down a path of changing my mind, but
Would that be the only?
again, it's like if you're telling me like if the ethics board like told me this wasn't a lens cap, like would I believe them? Like how many people would have to tell me this isn't a lens cap before I
Right.
believe them?
And
like,
yeah.
I probably a lot. Like eventually, if enough people tell me that this is actually like a coaster and that I'm mentally ill and that I just think it's a lens cap, there might be some number. No, I don't think so. I mean, like, this is one of the things you like about me. I think that it doesn't matter how many people in suits with degrees and the mob and whoever can all surround me in a circle and tell me that this isn't a lens cap, and I'll just never say, unless I really believe it, I'll never say that. So
Yeah, to be clear, I
asking me,
don't like you because you like
to
bury
do-
your
like-
heels and you don't change your positions. I appreciate you because you're just authentic about where you're at.
Yeah, and I'm trying to be authentic here. I'm saying, right. So there's two questions. One is, what would it take to get me to say that I don't think he abused?
Yeah, like
Reckful?
what's the
And
point of
other is,
credulity? What weight of evidence? Because, like, to be honest, I'm not saying there's no way he abused. I'm saying that takes a high level of evidence. I don't think it's there.
Yeah, I just
I'm
think
not
it's plain as
convinced.
day. I think it's plain as day.
Right. And so,
And
like,
so
what
that
level of
makes me think-
credulity do you have?
My only response to this is that I think you don't have a subtle or nuanced enough definition of abuse. And I'm
Sure. Like,
it just makes me put you in the camp of like some of the viewers. Like I know you know the rules, but I think that there's a level of psychological manipulation and abuse happening that it seems to like be going over your head. And so I now
What
I
level
want
of
to educate
abuse?
you.
What do you think I'm missing as far as like what do you think is missing?
Your
in
point,
my...
you're saying things like he liked it, but he was smiling. He said Dr. K helped him, and just the fact that you'd even bring that up makes me think that you don't understand like abuse dynamics in relationships unless they're super explicit. I know if he punched him in the face, you'd say he abused him, but if you bring up Dr. K's intentions or Reckful's explicit emotional reaction, it makes me think that you are not thinking on a subtle, unconscious level to understand.
Yeah.
Like,
So what am I missing? What do you feel like I am missing?
abuse victims often enjoy their abuse,
Right.
so that doesn't matter. And
Okay.
abusers often don't know they're abusers.
I don't
think
think
I guess you're missing
saying
like
you're
my
not diagnosed with something is abuse. It might not be best practice, but I don't think it's abuse.
it's the constellation of behaviors and the picture of their whole relationship that makes it abuse. There's no one individual moment that, taken in total isolation, if the rest of the relationship, except when he's saying, well, do I want to be your friend? Do I want to be your therapist? I'm not sure like what role we're trying to figure out what role I'm playing in your life. That is on its own abuse, no matter what happened before or after that. You cannot think out loud about whether you want to be somebody's therapist, especially 4 sessions in. There is no context you can add to make that not abuse. There's nothing you can do to make that not a serious ethics violation. And there's nothing you can do to make it not against the law. There's that on its own requires no context. The other things, you do kind of need to draw a through line. And well, the other things become abuse with that as like the foundation of what set the relationship up to be abusive, which is that it's in public, it's exploitative, but most of all, Reckful doesn't know if he's his therapist.
Right.
That sets the stage for the abuse, and then everything else is a little more subtle. And the fact that you're bringing up Dr. K's intentions, so I'm not making the charge that Dr. K is a like evil sadist. I think he has some moments of sadism, but ultimately, I think his goal is to
What you
help,
think that
his goal is
he
to help people.
brought Reckful on for his own personal gain? Would you
There's
say
only
first,
one
or
type
at
of
least
heal.
just
No.
the same?
No, he doesn't know he did that.
Dr. K
I think-
doesn't know that he brought Reckful on for that purpose.
No. Here's what I think Dr. K was thinking. No one's talking to these kids. No one cares about them. No one cares about gamers. And no one's talking about mental health on social media. In order to demonstrate the power of mental health care and therapy, I'm going to do some light demonstrations where I will help people out a little bit in the way that I can in an hour or two, and that will just show people that a therapist really can make a difference, or even a coach, somebody listening to you, and it'll be a place where I can showcase some of my techniques. And my techniques involve talking about anxiety, talking about depression, and then giving people meditation and breathing exercises, and giving people kind of a new frame for looking at their problems. So I'm going to teach them some like Hindu words and spirituality, and they're going to learn just a completely different frame for looking at their lives and looking at their feelings, and basically give them a totally new lens to look at their problems through, and then see how they feel. And if you want more of that lens, you can download my guide, which is this series kind of presented like a video game upgrade tree, where you go through and you watch different videos, you learn different techniques, and it helps you improve your life. And if you want somebody to talk to, you can talk to me. I'm a licensed psychiatrist, and then as the business grows, you can't talk to me, but you can talk to my coaches. It's too confusing with licensing and with money and liability and all this shit to have licensed therapists. So I'll have this coaching business. And again, these conversations, I will do my best to help these people. It will help the audience. I will show people that I'm not afraid of people expressing emotion directly and openly in front of me. And yeah, and I think so. We started out with Reckful, and he ignored some or didn't catch some kind of subtle signs that Reckful is really not doing well because he's Reckful comes across as a cheerful but lightly troubled person the first time you talk to him, and then I think by the end of the second time, he's saying, "Oh, I think you might need serious help." And then he came to a crossroads where he's saying, "Reckful, do you have a therapist?" And Reckful says, "No, I've never enjoyed talking to anybody but you." And that is his whole narcissistic view of himself, is that nobody wants to talk to anybody but me. He probably is thinking of his colleagues who don't understand gamers. They don't understand gaming addiction. They don't understand streamers. They don't understand the loneliness and they don't understand the horrors of being a streamer and having this chat saying these awful things to you that make you want to die all the time, the way that we understand it, and now you understand it. And so he was thinking, well, shit, if I refer him to, one of these over 55 psychiatrists, they're not gonna understand him, and it's gonna take them a year to even fucking grasp what this guy's life is like. If he's saying, of course you didn't like going to therapy before. So it perfectly fits in with his I alone can fix it view. So he knew he was breaking the rules, and he said, well, I'm gonna do what I can. So he starts in with some sessions with him, and I think in the fourth one, I think he started to after he found out. I guess the second one's where he learned that Reckful's father is and was suicidal, and he already knew his brother had killed himself, and he found out that Reckful had also tried to kill himself. I think by the fourth session, he was starting to feel like when he was learning that Reckful sends his friends walls of texts and pushes people away. He wasted a lot of time in the first couple on breathing exercises and kind of just monologuing. I think if he had really listened to him, he probably would have figured this out a lot faster, but I think it took him about 4 weeks to understand. Reckful was in pretty serious
Mr. Girl is reaching so hard here.
A new way of looking at things wasn't going to help. I think he mentioned, Reckful, you're going to have to talk to your family about your brother's suicide for the first time. And I think he saw a dead end there, that Reckful was not close to being ready for that conversation. And I think he started to realize, you know what, I'm not going to be able to make a meaningful difference with you in 4 weeks. I've bit off a bit more than I can chew. And part of him wanted to throw himself in fully and say, I'm going to try to love you for 2 years.
Yeah.
I wonder if he had a conversation with his wife afterwards.
That's kind of what I'm wondering, right? And I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Don't make promises that you can't make, and if you make them, keep them. Especially as somebody who has endeared yourself to a mentally ill person to such an extent.
But so at this point, to me, he's already committed crimes, ethics violations, and abuse that makes me think he should never practice medicine or therapy ever again. But from his point of view, I can understand how he's rationalizing every decision he's making. I'm not saying he's evil or that he's trying to hurt anyone. I understand why he's making these decisions, but what the layperson doesn't understand is that in order to make each of these decisions, he is knowingly breaking a rule that has been hammered into his head year after year after year after year.
Yes.
Hammered into his head as these are bedrock foundational principles of protecting the patient. You cannot do this. And he is knowingly breaking those rules, and I understand his rationalization for doing so.
Mm-hmm.
But he did it, and the guy killed himself. So I'm not saying that he wants to hurt anybody. Absolutely not. I'm saying he is out of control and very naive and has a very incomplete, simplistic view of human psychology. He doesn't seem to understand how damaging these little subtle things he is doing could be, particularly to somebody like Reckful.
Right. So I guess maybe a couple things to clarify.
Okay.
Do you think that the ethical breaches specifically increased Reckful's risk of suicide?
Yes.
How so? Where, like, what evidence do you have to claim that ethical breaches are going to increase the likelihood of a client who is mentally ill with previous attempts to attempt again?
I think most people who kill themselves believe that they are too much of a burden and that nobody wants to deal with them. I think that's kind of at the heart of a lot of, at least the suicidal people I've talked to. That seems to be at the heart of their loneliness. And the combination of telling that person, well, in 4 weeks of breathing exercises, like you're never going to have to express all that anger and sadness. And you don't have to bother anybody with those feelings. You can just disconnect yourself from them by meditating. You'll just be calm. You'll find inner peace.
Right.
And simultaneously telling him, well, you're also going to have to talk to your parents about this. Like, you realize that, right? And then when he clearly freaked out internally at hearing that, he's like, you know what? We're going to back off the confrontation stuff because I don't want to deal with you. We're just going to do breathing stuff.
Right.
That sends a message and simultaneously telling him, like, I'm the best person who can help you. I'm the best at what I do. I'm the expert. And the expert telling you that the best you can do is try to stay calm, try to detach from your feelings. It'll pass. I see a deep thirst for real intimacy in the way Reckful speaks that he never got from anyone, and he certainly didn't get it from Dr. K. He was told he was getting it, which is even worse to me than being told you're not getting it.
So do you think that meditation is a valid way of, like, disarming people who are distressed enough to commit suicide? Do you think that meditation is, like, an invalid thing? Not acutely, but somebody who is, like, passively suicidal kind of all the time. Do you think meditation
I think you have to be really, really careful about, are you disarming this person because they're a danger to themselves and others? Are you disarming this person because you want your audience to see somebody go from almost immediately suicidal right then to being reasonably calm and show them that you can provide the tools to get them to be there?
Which do you think it is
Or
on Dr. K's part?
It doesn't matter, because the fact that there's a question of it is the reason why you can't do this in public. Dr. K doesn't know the answer, and neither do we. And that's what makes it abusive. It has to be in private, and the therapist has to be firing on all cylinders, thinking clearly. They can't be glancing up at the purple hearts passing on the chat scroll. They have to be looking at you alone, sitting with you in your feelings, and making, with the full power of their brain and their heart, what they think is the right decision for you. And you can't do that when someone's throwing donations at you, when the audience is throwing donations at you, when they want to see Reckful cry. They want to see a show. They want to see an interesting conversation. They don't want a 5-minute pause. Reckful is the kind of client that needs to be allowed to have a 5-minute pause.
So I guess what I would argue is that, like, teaching people how to ground themselves in acute emotional distress is, like, one of the most fundamental skills to be teaching to clients with suicide history, because it's the best way to, it's a really effective way to keep them safe, right? Because there's major predictors of suicide, right? With suicide risks, previous attempts.
Would you do that on a live stream?
I'm not talking about myself, right? This isn't about me. What I'm saying is you're kind of outlining
that,
like,
can be done. Do you think you can ground yourself on a live stream with 5,000 people
watching? What you outlined was, like, a series of, like, treatments that he offered that are, like, when we talked about meditation, it felt like it was, like, this, like, kind of weak, limp-wristed thing that he offered somebody who was seriously, you said he didn't even realize the scope of it until, like, 4th episode of how seriously mentally ill Reckful was, which may or may not be true.
It's a short-term solution. It's a way to, yes, you can immediately calm yourself down and control your feelings for a moment.
Yeah.
But Reckful's problem ultimately is that his feelings were too controlled. So in one sense, yes, it keeps you alive for another few days, but it doesn't solve the problem that you are a bomb waiting to go off. And I think that you can use these two things in conjunction with each other. I'm not saying that that he shouldn't have taught him meditation. I'm saying that what he did not provide Reckful with the intimacy that he needed and that he would get from a real therapy relationship with somebody who's committed to him and able to have conflict with him, able to let him get mad at him.
So
or-
from
or-
my
or her,
understanding,
whoever
it
the
was
clinician
pretty clear that Reckful was absolutely unwilling to go see another therapist because he had had kind of some situations. From my understanding, basically, previously he had had a psychotherapist who basically like committed him, I believe, is what happened. So he had a very strong resistance of not getting treatment.
That doesn't matter.
So Dr. K would have better off not trying to help in any way at all, in his way, as non-therapeutically as possible, right? But to try to intervene in some way, teaching him some meditation skills, getting him to like express certain emotions that he needs to express.
No. I disagree with everything you're saying. You want me to say what I would have done if I were Dr. K?
No, I don't think that that's helpful, right? Because that's a post hoc thing, right?
Well, no, I can tell you what I would do if somebody, if I were a psychiatrist and someone told me they were suicidal on a live stream. He told him in the first live stream.
Okay, what would you do?
Don't say commit him again.
I would say, let's talk offline for 20 minutes. I can do a 20-minute consultation with you. I'm allowed to do that, even if I'm not your doctor. A 20-minute consult is within the scope of what's ethical. And then I would spend 20 minutes asking him why he's resistant to treatment. And then I would try to, I would do what I do on my advice show. I would try to convince him to seek treatment. And I would tell him, you tell me what went wrong,
never mind.
and
Fuck.
I will pull some strings. And I'll get you a name of somebody who I will personally vouch is not going to do that to you. Or I would say, if you want my help, here's what we have to do to make that happen. I guess if he's in Texas, I would say, like, if you're willing to come to Massachusetts for a couple months or 6 months or however long it takes, if you want to move here and do some like intensive psychiatric treatment, then I'll treat you.
Right. I'm not really sure if a private consult wouldn't also breach, like being like basically outside of his scope, because then you are like actively working as a practitioner, right? That definitely might have been like a healthy alternative.
You can't do a consult. You can't do a consult with somebody in a different state.
Usually not. Usually you're supposed to refer them to someone within state.
Okay, so then I would just have a private conversation with him and say,
Probably shouldn't
I'm going to
have
talk
a private conversation.
well, I'm not going to do it on a live stream. I would say we're going to have a conversation about me referring you to somebody else. I'm going to talk at you, and I'm going to I want to hear like what you're looking for in a practitioner.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm going to
Okay. Yeah.
refer
Like a
you.
conversation.
Not a
not a
20-minute
consult.
conversation about your childhood.
Yeah. No.
But,
Not a
Sorry,
consult.
20-minute.
Yes, and that definitely, I would agree. Actually, that probably would have been best practice. The problem is that we
Sure.
don't throw the book at people who don't meet best practice.
Didn't meet best practice is to me a gross mischaracterization of what happened. But you already know that I think that.
Yeah.
I think he's a systematic abuser, and he needs the book thrown at him as hard as humanly possible.
Right.
But yeah,
I guess like my issue when I'm like hearing you talk about this is it feels like you jump between, like, you kind of have these two possibilities that you're open to, which is that like Dr. K is either like arrogantly ignorant, resulting in abuse, or he's malicious, resulting in
no,
abuse.
he's not malicious. No. I've never said he's malicious. Not at all. He thinks that he knows better, and that is what makes him break the rules.
You think he's arrogant, and in his
think he's
arrogance, he commits like abuse.
I think he is narcissistic and also very naive. I think his view of human psychology is extremely oversimplified. I think this is the result of his own emotional problems, or
Okay.
psychological problems.
Right.
But I know you're not going to talk about that, and I don't think you should.
About which? Sorry.
But I think about what is wrong with Dr. K. I don't think you should comment on that. But
I
I'm free to.
have critiques
So-
of Dr. K, absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, in a clinical sense. I don't know. I think as a counselor, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, I know when I've watched some of your content, I definitely get the vibe of saying Dr. K is malicious. He's a malicious harmer.
No,
Okay,
not at all.
that's fair. And it's probably good to clarify because, to be honest, like I watched a lot of it, and I genuinely want to be like steel manning your position and giving you the benefit of the doubt. And I definitely got the interpretation.
Do you
that
think
were
Hitler
implying.
was malicious?
Hitler?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Hitler
that, yes.
was no more malicious than an exterminator.
No, I disagree with that. I think like Hitler absolutely had like a bent to him that like desired absolute annihilation and destruction of an entire
Not
race of
absolute.
people.
Yeah,
As
but he didn't
absolute
see
as
those
he
people-
could,
But he
as-
didn't see.
As good
But he
as he
didn't see
could.
those people as human. He didn't see those people as human
That doesn't make it not malicious.
any more than an exterminator sees rats as human.
Okay, but I would argue that dehumanizing people is malicious, whether you like feel malicious or not.
He's not doing it on purpose. That's just what.
What is this weird like deterministic?
I know.
so
There's
to
just no
Hitler-
good like
to Hitler-
logical justification to like
to
Hitler?
justify
Oh my
that
God. To
Jews
Hitler
were
or to-
Germans. That
to
Jews
Hitler?
were vermin. Sorry, not Germans.
to Hitler,
Yeah.
the rest of us are like vegans.
Okay, I
We're
can't.
like, oh, don't kill the. We're like, oh, don't kill the Jews, and he's like, why not? They're Jews. I don't think that's malicious. It's evil.
There's no
It's not
way
what-
that
it's
Hitler
not-
was
it's
making a
not-
rational claim. There's no way that you can rationally like work your way.
I don't
into
think that
convincing
Dr. K is
yourself.
rational. I don't think Dr. K is rational at all.
If you are actively
I think he's
dehumanizing
fucking.
people,
I think he's fucking nuts.
there's maliciousness there.
I-
You think Dr. K is crazy?
No, you don't choose who you dehumanize. It just happens to you. It's not a you're not deciding to dehumanize people. Who would decide that?
Okay, I feel like now we have to talk about like the Hitler thing and then go back into the Dr. K because I feel like the right, not because I'm like trying to be inflammatory, but I think like extremes are important because they set principles, right? And if you want to be consistent, you want to do your best to like apply the principle across the board.
I'm
And-
saying the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right. I think that the comparison between Hitler and Dr. K is disanalogous.
It's perfect.
It's
No,
a very
that's perfect.
disanalogous.
No,
There's no way you exterminate like millions of people without malicious intent.
I disagree. I think he was
Uh,
trying to do. You can hear his speeches. He clearly, I believe what he was saying. He was trying to bring about the paradise for the Aryan race,
Do you think
which
you
he
can
thought was
have?
the most, which he thought was the most righteous thing he could possibly do.
Yeah, he might have been
disagree.
benevolent for the Germans, but he was malicious to the Jews.
I wouldn't call that maliciousness. I
You
just
don't
don't, I guess
think-
I just don't think I'm
God.
bringing up Hitler because I don't think anybody only there I think there are certain psychopaths who like serial killers who do know that they want to hurt people
Yeah.
and who enjoy it and who don't care. Most people, Hitler included, regardless of the amount of evil that they do, think of themselves as the good guy main character.
So then
of their
who is
story.
malicious?
And
That doesn't mean
Dr.
that they're
K
not malicious.
Yeah, what does malicious mean? She should
well,
ask.
I guess that
What
I
does
don't
it
know
mean
what
to
you
be
meant by
malicious then?
Okay, that's fair. Maybe we should define malicious.
Yeah, Jesus.
When I say
Okay.
malicious, I mean intending harm. Regardless of the reason, you
don't-
absolutely intend harm, oftentimes to the extent that you are willing to harm
I
yourself
don't think
to harm
Hitler
them.
defined the Holocaust as harmful. Any
I
more
don't- I
than
don't
an
care.
exterminator.
I
Any
don't
more
care
than
what-
an exterminator. Do you think an exterminator defines killing all the rats in your house as harm? No, they define it as curing your house. They're helping you, and I think that is how anyone committing genocide thinks that they're doing a good deed.
I don't
Because
think
they
that
don't they don't have the same definition of harm or even the same definition of as human as you.
Right. I don't think that you can make like a valid claim that Hitler came to a valid conclusion around the Jews, right? And that there wasn't any level of like malicious, emotional.
Validity has nothing to do with intent.
I'm saying that your conclusion isn't valid. I can't see how you can try
You said
to claim.
maliciousness is the result of intent. I believe that Hitler, an exterminator, Dr. K, and me all have the same intent. We're all doing things that other people think are fucked up because we want to make the world a better place.
So who can be malicious then? Who is malicious?
Thank you. Thank you.
I just said a serial killer who has enough self-awareness to know that what I'm doing is wrong. I have a sick urge to want to strangle people in parking lots. I know this is wrong. I shouldn't be doing it, but I really enjoy it. And I'm gonna fucking do it.
This is so
that
dumb.
to me is malicious.
So there's like 2 people on the planet that are malicious.
Yeah, this is like such a.
Why doesn't he
think it's
just
like 1 in a
dehumanize
hundred.
them
I
like
think
Hitler?
it's
Why
about-
doesn't he just like
I think
engage
it's
in being
about-
like, there's a reason why I'm killing these people. It's a justified action. They're not really human. They're cockroaches. They're dirty sluts, right? Whatever
I'm
he's
not the
going to
one
use to
who's-
describe them.
I'm making the point because I think that your appeal to proof of maliciousness is dumb. I agree. You can't really define
Please.
that many people as malicious, and you should stop talking about it. That's why I'm saying it. Because very few people have malicious intent.
I think I think we have to patently disagree here because I think that that's absurd. I think many people have malicious intent, and then after they do it, they engage in self-justification for their behavior. But absolutely, there are unequivocally people who basically show up. They basically they try to harm you because they want
Yes,
to harm
thank you.
you.
Good.
That's their goal,
don't
which
agree.
I would say is malicious.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think people just want to harm others.
It's just
I think
frustrating
that
because you
I
like
think
told
it's
me that I was
usually-
naive around abuse, but then you're saying I don't think people maliciously want to harm others, which is like
This is what
that's
this is
fair.
what makes you naive.
No, absolutely not.
Well, this is what my personal opinion is that the thing that makes you naive is that you run all
There's only one type of
accusations
meal.
of abuse
Okay.
through a filter, and you're like, well, but does the abuser think they're being abusive? When that is the last fucking most irrelevant question you could possibly be asking, and it seems to be the first question you ask, and it's going to make you define some of the most abusive, destructive people on the planet, even Hitler, as like, well, he thought what he was doing is right, so like, what? I don't know. So Dr. K's opinion on Dr. K does not matter. That's why I keep saying I don't want to talk about it any more than Hitler's opinion on Hitler matters. It doesn't matter. I don't care what Hitler thinks of Hitler. Do you?
No, but it's
There's nothing. There's no bearing on my view of whether he's a good person or not.
but you just said that because Hitler thought what he was doing was justified, then his actions aren't malicious. And I said I don't really care if Hitler justified his
Maliciousness
actions.
Maliciousness is a statement of intent,
Yes.
and I think that malicious is a
Intending
slur.
harm.
Yes, I think malicious is a slur that applies to almost nobody. It's just a way to discredit somebody, or in this case, give somebody undue credit by saying they're not malicious. Well, almost nobody's malicious. I just don't think it's relevant.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe we'll have to like. This feels like a weird semantic game, but like, and you maybe don't want to use the word malicious, but I would say it's obvious that Hitler intended to do harm to some, regardless of whether or not.
is
to some extent,
absolutely
like,
a
then, yeah,
semantic
could we
game.
say,
I
like,
already responded to this.
Yeah.
Hitler did not believe he was doing harm.
I don't care.
You
what
do not
Hitler
have the
believes.
same definition of harm, and you don't have the same. Well, you just said he intended, so you do care what Hitler thinks for some reason. Why you keep going down this road, I don't
Because
know. And
if
I wish you
people
would stop.
post
But
hoc
since you said
justify
it
their
again, I will.
Because
Since you
if
said it
people
again, I
post
will
hoc
respond
justify
again.
their actions to deem it
I don't
not
care about what
malicious
Hitler
later.
thinks of Hitler. I don't care what he would think looking back. Hitler does not have the same definition of harm. He does not have the same definition of human.
Right.
So, what Hitler's intent doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Dr. K does not have the same definition of harm
As you do.
as me, or as an ethics board.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's obvious that Hitler intended to do harm to Jews, right? Regardless of whether
Yeah,
he dehumanized them, he still intended.
yeah, I
you could argue
understand.
exterminizers
Okay.
intend to do harm, right? Dr. K is obviously intending to benefit basically everyone. That's his goal, including himself.
Yes, I don't care what. Okay, do you believe that I don't care what Dr. K intends?
Yes,
Great.
sort of.
Bro,
But you bring up his intention sometimes, so it's
when?
unclear to me. Well, you
Okay,
like
let's
when
talk
you
about that
outlined
then.
two
Let's-
situations. You said he's either being ignorantly arrogant, right, or
Mm-hmm.
he's being malicious, which is just make an assumption.
I don't think I said he's being malicious.
What do you think that you said? He's being an
In
abuser.
this conversation, I think he's an abuser. Yes. I think most abusers do not think they are abusers.
Yeah.
And Dr. K is no exception.
Okay.
It's normal, totally normal abusive behavior to abuse people and think that you're not being abusive. Convince and charm everybody around you, charm their pants off, make them think that you're not abusive. Absolutely, that's totally standard abusive behavior. It doesn't matter what he thinks. So I don't think I've made much statement.
Where is like any
I think the only
damage?
thing is
How are
that
we fighting for
occasionally
20
people say,
minutes
like,
here? We
"Do you
don't have
think
the
he's
whole
trying
fucking
to be
team
like this?"
fighting.
And I'm like,
I don't
"No,
understand what's going on.
absolutely
Oh, and he
not. I
walks
don't
away
think
from
that's
this
crazy.
guy right as he gets the fear.
Right.
Something is
I
just
think I said
not.
if I were trying to convince somebody to kill
I don't know.
themselves, I would do
I don't know,
something
whatever.
similar to what he did. But I wasn't trying to say that was his intention. I was trying to say he fucked it up so bad that you almost couldn't, like, do a better job of building
The
up
thresh
this
is good, at
flimsy
least.
foundation for a mentally ill person to climb
Just
on
don't know how
top
much
of and
matters.
then yanking it out from underneath them. It's slightly hyperbolic, but I think he
Right.
fucked it up real bad. But I was not trying to say that he didn't know. Clearly he wants to make the world a better place. I know that.
Sorry, I thought that you said like the promise that he made to him was like a human mistake that anyone can make. Like, and
The
that he didn't own
promise?
it enough.
Yes. When I say yank the rug out from underneath him, I'm not talking about the moment where he took the promise back. I'm talking about getting Wreckful over the fear of seeking treatment by offering treatment that is not defined as treatment. You can see why he was tempted to do that, because by Wreckful's own admission, that might be the only treatment he would accept. And Dr. K found it unacceptable to just say, like, maybe you can't do anything for this person.
Right. Do
Or
you,
maybe the only thing you can do is try really hard to get him a referral.
okay. Do you think that the fact that Dr. K has scaled down these like live sessions and whatnot is like proof of like potentially like, hey, maybe these ethical
Vegan, I
lines
can't do anything.
are too many and I might not be like the wisest necessarily, so I'm gonna like scale back potential risk of harm.
I think-
Thank you, Jesus
I
Christ.
think that
dude.
Dr. K still believes that he could help or save these people. But I believe that most likely his wife.
Why would he
who I know
walk
very
back?
little
You
about,
survived.
but I'm assuming, behind every great man, I'm assuming somebody is telling him, hey, you tried it. It didn't work out. You're exposing us to people like Mr. Girl and like lawyers and lawsuits and shit. You gotta stop. I assume that's why he scaled it back. And probably it's painful. It's probably really painful to try to help somebody, especially so publicly, and then have them die. I mean, he obviously was really broken up about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's all kinds of reasons he would scale it back. Some are practical, self-protective, and some are... But no, I don't. I still think that he thinks he's above the rules. I just think at this point he is realizing that it's not smart.
Right.
But it's too late.
Do you think that you can? I'm really caught up on this malicious thing. Maybe I should just move on. But like, do you think that you can do something malicious, but also for a good reason, or like do something not for a good reason? Sorry. Do you think you could do something malicious and have that result in benefiting someone?
Yeah, sure. I could like break your windshield with a golf club, but it turns out that you needed to replace your windshield anyway. So then you get like an insurance payout.
Okay. So going back, right? Like, if you can benefit somebody.
You're playing God.
Me?
Yeah, this ends justify the means shit scares me. I don't think it has a place in in therapy.
Yeah. Do you mind if you give me like a couple seconds to think? Because the malicious stuff, like the fact that it seemed like we had such a semantic
Yes,
disagreement
I can,
about
I
it.
can stop. I can stop responding to your facial expressions out loud.
Okay.
That's fair. My chat is saying in all caps, "Call her licensing board." Okay, now I'll stop them. You're just kidding.
Nice. Yes.
I didn't mean
Not
for it to be
nice.
mean. I thought she would know that you were kidding.
Oh, I'm genuinely, I'm just thinking. So to be honest, I'm just like not
I'm talking to
super
my
closely.
chat.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm just not really paying
Can you
attention,
stop
just so know.
eavesdropping?
Excuse you.
This
you're
is a
in my
private conversation.
you're in my space right now.
You almost said office, but then you realized that you shouldn't say that. I'm just gonna talk to my chat. Hey guys. Hi horses. Mr. Girl here. Let her think. I am trying to. The Hitler analogy made no sense. Thank you. Be angrier. It was more fun. I can't control my feelings. This is a really good talk. Hitler's act of malice was not going to therapy. True. This is a sad attempt to bait Dr. K into an interview. I think once I started saying I think he's breaking the law, I would say it would be very stupid of him to talk to me. I don't think he should do that. Tons of gifted subs. Oh. That's good.
Will I watch the whole VOD? Maybe. I might just talk with her after and get her impression. I have a feeling I can tell how most of the talk went based on this segment of the conversation.
Oh, Nightbot. Wow, there's a new auto message. Do not defend Mr. Girl by DMing other chatter streamers. We will ban you if you're harassing people here or on any other platform. Man, guys take this shit really seriously. I didn't write that message, but I endorse it fully. Yeah, don't
Okay.
defend me. I
There's
don't need
only
you to
one
defend me
type
to
of meal.
anybody.
Okay.
I'm like a fucking asshole. So
Okay.
everything that happens to me is my fault.
All right.
Okay, I can't kill this
Hi.
guy. Not even close.
Oh hey.
I'm trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out precisely why this analogy is like rubbing me so wrong.
Yeah, I have some theories.
That's fair.
They're a little personal.
Dr. K didn't abuse Reckful to help him, right? This is just analogous because Hitler maliciously harmed the Jews with the sole intent of benefiting Aryans.
I don't. Well, in the analogy,
Oh, he misses his cue.
Right?
Hitler is trying to
And
help,
Thresh
like,
gets the
people.
kill. Not
I guess
good.
I'm making a broader analogy of like, are you trying to do good? And Dr. K. So there's one way you could say like, well, Dr. K is willing to sacrifice the streamer for the good of the people, but I don't really think that either. I think Dr. K was trying to help Reckful specifically.
Right, but
But
you
I guess the
can be
analogy is-
malicious in order to do good, right? You can intend to do harm to others with the goal of doing good.
I don't think Hitler thought he was doing harm to anyone. Anyone that mattered. Like if
Because
somebody,
he dehumanized people.
well, he also like racist people believe that they're acting defensively. So if somebody like tries to kill me, and I shoot them,
There's only
not being
one
malicious.
type of meal. Okay.
and I think most racist people believe that they are being threatened by the race that they hate,
Right.
and it's a defensive action to prevent harm to themselves or their people. They are going to fight back. You know, like lynching. It's like we gotta teach. We gotta
I needed to
teach
flash
y'all
them
a
out that
lesson.
shit.
So
Did you get
that
one
you
kill? Oh,
will
he didn't even
stop,
ult. Maybe it wasn't in range.
You know, raping our
Just-
white women.
What a game, dude.
It's usually, I think,
Oh, he's dead.
seen by the
Unless he's got another
in our
nice
minds the
flash.
aggressor or murderer as an act of defensiveness. So even something as like obviously abusive as a lynching, the people doing it probably don't think of themselves as being abusive
Nice, John.
through a combination of
Wow.
dehumanization and rationalization.
Wow, he might actually.
But if you're intending harm, even if you think it's for a good purpose, that's still malicious.
Is it
My
malicious
bomb hit
to-
him?
if
Oh,
you're
I
an
didn't
executioner
flash!
Working at a jail, are you malicious every time you throw the switch?
I guess if you're intending to harm them, yeah, a little bit. Not as like there's
Well,
extents.
I think
and
that's
stuff.
okay. Then I think your definition of malicious is like too broad then, because I don't think a hangman is malicious.
I'm dead. Dude, this. Nice
So a
flash,
hangman
God.
isn't intending harm, right? He's
Right, and so
he's
a
enacting.
lynch mob isn't either. They think, well, you got
Good
away
names.
with it. You need to be punished. You need to be held to account.
We have 2 crowns.
And so
Okay?
it's
They have
like,
no
well,
crowns.
just
We
like
can't
to
lose
us,
this game.
You know,
We have more
to
crowns
us,
than they
we're
do.
just holding a little court.
Okay.
You were found guilty, and your punishment is death. But that the lynch mob believes that the person they're killing deserves to die, and that if they don't die, then more harm will come. I just don't believe that anybody sees themselves in a negative light, except like the most fucked up people on Earth.
Okay.
And Dr. K is not one of them.
Okay.
I don't think
Probably.
he's that fucked up.
Probably just need to get off this. I think like getting into semantic battle is like not worth the time. Like not worth it because it detracts from the major point because it's like you don't care about his intent either way. So you don't care if he's malicious or not.
Okay.
Yeah. Not really sure where to even go back to.
Take your time.
Well, I guess where do you want to go back to? Because I like we're just going to keep fighting tautologically. So do you
Well,
feel
where we were,
so you were basically
here's
sure
you want to go or you want me to go?
you can go.
You were telling me what you think I should do. And you were saying part of what you think I should do, given how I feel, is think about it until I feel differently. Which feels like a bit of a sidestep.
This enemy team
And,
built so troll. I mean, like, I think we can win.
I can't control that. So given how I feel, and without arguing with what I think, or predicting or hoping that
Oh
what
my
I think will
God.
change, and I think I've outlined what I think pretty clearly, now what do you think I should do?
Okay.
You see the predicament of
I can't be near him
it's
with
not,
his
I'm
ulti
not
unless
blowing
I have
him up.
flash.
He's bigger than I am.
Right.
So he's already out there sending messages that I believe are directly harmful to people getting mental
There's
health.
only
The
one
exact
type of
opposite
heal.
of what everybody thinks he is doing.
Right. I think you should
I
veil
believe
your
you-
anger more in what you're putting
Wow.
out there.
I don't get to
Okay.
play the game as an
That's
8
why
carry,
I
I
think I
guess.
should
My bad.
veil my
I
anger.
just lose.
It's
I
going
should
right
have
back
just
to,
sat
like,
at the
my
pool until
concern
every
with,
single
like,
enemy champion got through all of their
trial by
cooldowns.
media.
Garen has to use his ult,
I
Sona
think,
has to
like,
use her ult,
there's a
Malphite has to use his ult, and then once
parasocial
every single ult in the
relationship
game is down,
You are
then I can come
engaging
up
in
and play
lots
the
of
game.
anger,
That was my
so
bad.
lots of
I'm just a
emotions
fucking
around this.
retard.
You could incite a lot of people to do a lot of rash, silly things where they jump on the bandwagon, whether they agree or not. And the problem is that these claims can escalate and grow, right? You might be having a decently your reaction, like I said, to how you feel about things is at least it makes sense, right? I disagree about some of the conclusions you've come to, but if I was feeling the same way you were feeling, I wouldn't say that your decision to
Yeah.
like report him to the medical board is disproportionate based on what you think has happened and transpired, right? My
Yeah.
concern is that your anger is going to give rise to a mob who is going to utilize your anger as fuel. And the problem is that these things are often going to get out of hand, right? They're going to go beyond you. They're going to quickly become out of your control. So the goals of what you want can explode if trial by media engages. And I genuinely think we're at the brink of it, right? You've got another streamer, Chud Logic, who kind of jumped in as well. After seeing your stuff, he probably would have never even thought about Dr. K until after that, right? I want you to be able to be yourself, right? And I enjoy that, but the problem is that sometimes the viewers are going to hijack your energy, right? And where they go with it isn't always conscionable, right? Where they go with it might be beyond even what you're asking for, right? What if they, rather than reporting him to the medical board, they start doing things like harassing his family, harassing his kids or his wife, things like that, which is definitely within reason of where this could go, and that's my concern, because we've seen it a ton, right? Like, I mean, I think like most major streamers have experienced some form of harassment where people come after their actual family members, and I think that
But
that's
isn't there usually a person like obviously I don't want anybody to harass anybody. Isn't
Yeah.
there usually but okay, so streamers will say that, but I think that when I say it, people believe that I actually don't want anybody to harass Dr. K.
I don't know if that's true. Because, like I said, I was doing my best to give you the benefit of the doubt, and I like you. Even after this this conversation, I really like you, and I still
Okay.
thought you were implying that he's malicious. And you don't care about his intent, but a lot
Whether
of
he's
people
malicious
do.
or not, do you think that I want people to harass him?
No, I don't think you want this. That's not the point.
Well, but when somebody says, "Well, don't," I disavow anybody harassing Anita Sarkeesian. Do you believe that?
That what?
When streamers tell you not to harass the person they've been haranguing,
Do I believe
Like-
that? Do I believe them that they don't want people to harass them? Yes. The problem is that like that's not necessarily how Tri-Bi Media and Lynch witch
like
hunts
after
go.
Vosh hung up on me, he said, "Mr. Girl fans need lead therapy."
Yeah.
I believe he wants his fans to harass me and my fans.
Okay.
Um,
What do you think about
but
that?
I don't think you should say things like that. But if he wants to say, "I believe Mr. Girl is unethically talking about Android underwear, blah blah blah," whatever he's mad at me about, then like that's fine.
Right.
Your Uber has arrived.
The issue is that like the mob at some point
guess
when it
I
gets
gue-
to a certain size doesn't care what you
Yeah.
want, because especially if you're no longer being the talking piece for them, sometimes people just want to stir shit and they get like caught up on a cause for whatever reason, and it no longer matters what the original like whistleblower. That's the
And you
whole
think
issue
I
of
should try-
Gamergate
okay,
is the
yeah,
boyfriend
I
didn't want
fucking-
women to be
I know,
harassed. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
You're
So that's
saying
my
that
concern.
You're saying I should compensate for this concern for Dr. K's safety.
I would say
Okay,
you've already
we
submitted
agree,
a medical.
We agree right now. Let me fucking finish.
Okay.
We agree right now that I am losing the PR battle. But we both also agree that I might swiftly win it in a sudden reversal sometime in the next like
it
week
could.
or two.
Yeah. If enough
Okay.
streamers kind of start to get on your side, right?
Okay. So it's possible that I will suddenly be the Goliath here.
I imagine, to be honest, if it just stayed with you leading it, that would be one thing. I imagine that
But it
somebody
probably- it
bigger
prob-
who's
it-
willing to say more extreme things than you could co-opt the leadership and then take it in a direction
Okay.
that you never wanted it
Well,
to go.
Okay. And you're saying that I should compensate for the possibility of this by being less emotionally authentic.
I think you should be careful about the decisions you're making of just being rooted in your anger, right? I
Do you
don't know
think
what
that
you need to do more.
You're telling me to be less emotionally authentic?
I'm asking what more do you need to do based on how you're feeling about the situation. You're going to come out with a video.
You're not asking it. You're not asking it.
Okay, I am asking it now. You've already come out with a video. Well, you're coming out with a full form video, right? You haven't released it yet?
Right.
Okay, so you've got that video, right? You've submitted a claim to the medical board.
This isn't a question.
So my
This is a
question is,
list.
what more do you need to do?
I'm happy to tell you.
Okay.
I need to make this video, which is a primer on education, an educational video on therapy ethics,
Okay.
complete with expert interviews. If anybody agrees to do that. Here are the rules. Here's how I broke them. Here's why they're important. Then I want to do a video about, maybe a video about Healthy Gamer. Depending on what happens after the first video, and maybe depending on what happens with the ethics decision, and I'll probably send the video to some journalists who are probably interested in this, and then see what happens. The next video would be about Healthy Gamer, and then I've been filming myself watching these Recful sessions and just like screaming at the camera. That would be the one that probably you're the most concerned about. The raw emotion video. And that would probably be the last of me just like probably at my most like unhinged on camera so far.
This is going to be like an aside. It's just more, I guess it's more of like a check-in. Do you still feel like I am engaging with you in like good faith and being like honest in what I'm saying?
You're trying to.
Okay. Meaning like
Yes.
more
The
yes
good
than
faith
no?
means you're trying.
Right.
Yes, I think that you are being careful and probably have to be careful in a way that prevents you from fully. Well, also we're like on stream, and you are a counselor, so I think there's some things preventing you from fully digging in, but I don't think you are being. I don't think you're being dishonest at all. I think you're being a little cautious. And my anti-cautious kind of approach to conversation
39 months of being in your walls
is somewhat clashing with that, but I don't know that there's anything we can do about it.
Okay.
But
I feel like
as far as
I've outpaced him
intentionality, yes, I think you're
intellectually.
being good faith. I just think you have to be a little more careful than I do in this conversation. and
no
make
longer
sure
a white name
that-
DPChat.
Okay,
Anyways,
so you don't
never
feel like
lose.
I'm bullshitting you or like
I
actively
feel like
lying
I've
or like
outpaced
anything.
him
No,
intellectually.
not
Okay.
at all.
That's good. I just wanted to check and make sure. Because to be honest, like if
I love the
if
streamer
you
man,
felt
he'll
like I
ruin
was
my life
engaging
if I
in
so
like bad
desire
faith, like
DPChat
in my
DGL.
mind, I'm like, I don't know where we go now because there's no way to like rebuild
No.
that kind of trust. So that's good to hear. So hearing kind of about like what your plan is, where to take this.
Yeah, that's
Potato
that's kinda like the vague
348, potato
outline,
349,
but,
potato
you know, I don't know
350,
what's
potato
gonna
3.
happen, so it could change. But those are
Hello,
the
King
things
War.
that are coalescing. The 3 videos that are coalescing, and then after that,
statistician.
I'm in touch with I think 5 Healthy Gamer coaches now.
Did
So,
you
like,
see that Amaranth lost
that's
300k
like 10%
in
of
Facebook
his
stock?
coaches.
It's funny.
So, like,
LUL.
the number
Who
of
invest in
people who are
Facebook in
reaching out to me
2022?
saying, like,
TikTok is
and
where it's
then
at
there's
on the
people who,
law.
like gone to sessions there or who went on stream
Post your
with him
gains,
and
mate.
felt weird about it.
No one can
sending
ever
me,
have
like,
malicious intent
documents
according
and
to Mr. Girl.
contracts and shit and all this crap I have to like look through to figure out like what I think of it.
I
and
feel
then-
like I've outpaced him intellectually.
so I don't know what's gonna come up, but like yeah, if I end up with like
Does
half
Mr.
the
Grow live
coaches
on Enter fucking Planet?
saying,
Where
like, I
did
wanna
he come
talk
out
to
of a
you about
mental
this, like,
hospital? His logic
probably
is of a
doing
crazy
a Healthy Gamer
motherfucker.
video.
Like WTF on the law.
Do they
And
want
then-
to talk to you about you like to like whistleblow, or they just want to like try to explain their workplace more to you?
I think it's both. I honestly think that they are more just like I want to just figure out what's going on.
Right. And so I guess what I would
And I
say,
think,
like,
I think they view me as wanting to just figure out what's going on. I don't think they.
If you don't have the mental
just
acumen to
take
not
down
queue up
anything.
for a
It's
league
like,
game when tilted, you shouldn't engage with public rank league games.
I think they actually believe that I am trying to
Stop
figure this
stuffing
out,
your
and I
fat
think part
fucking
of the
mouth.
reason they believe that is that I am very forthright about
Poggers.
how angry I am.
Yeah.
I feel like that in a way makes me more credible because it doesn't seem like I have an agenda. I'm trying to be as transparent as I can. And you're saying that transparency
Steven.
is also dangerous because it can fuel people's
you,
anger and have them take it in a way I don't want. But like,
it's being mindful about it. It's not being about being dishonest.
no,
at
I
all.
don't think I will be. I don't think I want to be mindful.
Mr. Girl is just the end
I
of
think
Dr.
once
K
you're
on
the
the law.
head of a movement, you have duty of care because you already said you don't want this to end in like an absolute like situations where like wife, family, kids are being harassed, healthy gamer coaches are being harassed.
No.
Like you don't want that,
No.
and I believe you. And so I think if you were heading
I
up a
don't.
major movement and like a public campaign against somebody, you have duty of care because you're leading it. And here's the thing, like I think you have this anger.
Yeah, I just don't think admitting that I'm angry is. I think that's actually more responsible. I don't think
So
it's
the anger
irresponsible
isn't
to
the
be
issue.
angry.
My concern is like sometimes the language, right? Like you tend to use like very strong language and stuff like that, which is fine by itself. But once you're at the head of an entire movement, my concern is that like you have this authentic feeling, you have a deeply complex view. Here's the thing, like I could be fucking wrong about everything, and you've just like sniffed up to some nefarious shit that's going on that nobody fucking predicts. Like that shit happens. So I'm not saying like you're 100% wrong. I'm saying
that's absolutely what's happening.
I'm saying maybe. I'm definitely not saying for sure. Like I'm not fully agreeing with you, but it could be, right? I'm open to that possibility happening. What I'm saying is you've already reported him to the correct authorities as far as his medical licensure goes, right? Which is within your. I think the factual video that you're planning to make is an excellent idea around ethics around that, because I think I think this conversation is
it
so
irresponsible
important.
to express anger?
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Then tell me what you think is irresponsible.
You got to let me finish.
No, because I already know. You already said all this.
Yes, I'm restating things because I feel like you're missing the most important point. If they hijack your righteous anger, they could turn it into malicious anger that they have not earned, and they will use it for things that could be really dangerous. That's my concern.
I already know that, and I don't want that. My question to you is, how do you know that disclosing my own personal, like, psychological roots and problems and unhingedness is going to add fuel to the fire of whatever mob forms rather than subtracting from it?
Why would your anger subtract?
Because people will see it as like, this is very personal for Mr. Girl. It's not something I should be angry about. He's not angry because it's like obvious we should all be angry.
I don't know if people think like that, because you have to remember that a lot of the people are parasocial with you. Right? A lot of your followers are going to be parasocial. So because of parasociality, we tend to want to protect the things that we love and care about, and we tend to take on their emotions because we care about them. We broadly agree with them, right? But not everyone is going to take the care that you are going to of being like, look, guys, I'm not interested in harassing, right? That's the problem, is that these movements get hijacked.
I think I've done a pretty good job of messaging with my fans, even the most parasocial, that I don't feel the way I feel because I'm supposed to. My feelings aren't right. That's just how I feel, and I'm not you, and it's not how you feel.
Yeah.
And I think in exchange for doing a good job of that I can responsibly express my emotions.
Right. I guess my issue is that not all of the people who are going to get behind the movement, who are going to feel the anger you have actually like essentially earned the anger that they might feel towards Dr. K, because they probably haven't even watched all of the videos, because it is 12 hours, right? It's a lot of time to invest to do like.
I'm gonna invite you to my
Discord.
Research. Are you not in my Discord? Are you?
I don't think so.
Would you like to join it?
Sure.
Okay. Before everybody starts spamming "fuck Dr. K" or whatever the fuck they're about to start doing, I want you to join and look around.
Okay.
Look in general, video discussion, suggestions, and research.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I'm not necessarily talking about your followers and viewers right now. I'm talking about the people who join angry, kind of like witch hunt mobs that follow after.
Because I'm putting 100%.
Those are the ones I'm mostly concerned about, because particularly, like, I'm not saying your fans are freaks who are just like, and they want to destroy. Like, I don't need to go through. Like, I can join your thing. I'm not trying to vet all your fans, especially when you're a small-time content creator. I find that a lot of times the people who follow you are going to be a lot more engaged. Like, I've been really, really impressed with even the people on my channel and stuff, because they really engage with content. Because I'm super fucking long-winded. I don't have a name behind me, and so the only reason people are going to follow me or you to some extent is because of something, right? Something probably a little bit more thoughtful. But if this moves towards more of like a movement and your name becomes like just kind of a name, right? Those are the people that now get involved. Those are the ones. I'm not saying that you're fans right now, right? I'm not saying that like right now you have a group of troublemakers who are trying to harass people and go after kids. Like, I don't think that that's the case at all, right? I wouldn't say that about any fan base. I'm not even talking about Twitch fan base.
I don't think I can do what you're asking as like an artist.
Right. I guess my issue is like there's movements and then they descend into something else, and that's where things
I
like
still think you're
felons
thinking
go to
just like
riots more often than protesters go to riots,
Yeah,
and they don't
yeah,
care about the
sure,
movement
sure.
at all,
That-
right?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
what
think
I'm concerned
your
about.
Your ends justify the means thinking again just is. I think I just don't think that way.
Yeah, that's fair. I think if you're like going to take on like the like mantle of like leading something like this, there has to be a certain level of duty of care, because I think you agree that you wouldn't want
I
to
know
see
what
this
you think.
ending
I'm
with
saying I
something-
don't agree with you.
Yeah, but do you? I guess do you
I
want?
don't agree with you.
I think it's like you're an artist, you're avant-garde, and that's fine. But you're now
Yeah.
becoming a social advocate. You're moving into a new sphere.
I don't know.
I think you are. You're making an educational
I don't
video.
know.
Right?
Yeah.
You're advocating for certain ethics around therapy. Like you're definitely moving into more of an
artists
advocacy
do
education
that all the
space.
time. Artists do advocacy all the time.
You want to convince everyone that Dr. K is bad.
I want them to see why I think he's bad.
Do you want them to believe you?
Oh my god.
No.
What do you mean?
I want them to believe that I think it.
I think you do, because if they don't believe you, why would you you want his license to be stripped? Correct? So you want the ethics board.
I wouldn't even be able to like give her advice on like these because this is such a unique conversation. I feel like he just gets so lost to these weird semantics sometimes. I don't understand like
what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
I believe they. It's more. It's your thing. It's like backwards. I believe them. I was taught these rules and I believe them. They're
But
the
that's
one
like
making the
your
rules.
interpretation of the rules.
I don't think so. I think you're just wrong.
I think that fundamentally that's what everything is to some extent. Even the way when I'm analyzing this, it's fundamentally my interpretation of the rules. That's why these boards
understand.
exist, is to be like, let's get as smart
Yeah.
and elected people as possible. Yeah.
I get what you're saying. I don't think the ends justify the means in general.
Right.
And not in this case either.
My concern is that mobs will want to punish Dr. K. Ethics
That's the
boards
ends.
are going to
Yes,
respond to Dr. K.
And those are the ends. And so you want to justify the means with the ends. I get what you're saying. I just
What?
I think the process that you are approaching the way you're approaching this, I think, is like inherently almost immoral. Like I don't think it's right to conceal my emotions or motivations, nor to suppress like artistic videos or emotional videos I want to make because I'm afraid of people misunderstanding them. I think that I should
Because
talk
you're an
more.
artist, right? And I think that that's a valid claim for an artist. Like genuinely, the problem is that the moment you're going into education, you're asking, like you're advocate, like you're.
Even
I
an
would say you're
educator,
advocating.
I think everybody should communicate this way. I don't. I
But
mean,
you
unless
want-
you have.
You said you wanted to publicly destroy his career.
oh my
If
god, they
you
have
do
an
that
allow. It's a
publicly,
free
that
win
means
game.
people are
Mr.
going
Girl,
to
stop
behind
Dr.
you,
K.
right? The
And his
reason why
coaching someone
the
in the coaching
public
program
would
commits
destroy
suicide
his
because
career,
they
the
don't
reason
have
why that would
support
be
anymore
a
wouldn't
thing
be
is
Mr. Girl's
because
fault based
people
on
are
his
going to
previous
get
argument
behind
for
you
why
and
it's
say,
fault. It's Dr. K's
absolutely,
fault.
this is happening. And ideally, in your case, the ethics board will also get behind you and say that this is happening, because that would add a lot of fuel to what you're claiming. But I think it's like I don't really know what to do with the fact that you're saying like I want people to believe that I believe what I'm saying, but I don't want them to believe what I'm saying, because it's like, then why are you like releasing all of this?
There are two courts. There's the professional court and the public opinion court. And the worst outcome in this case would be, and I am talking about the outcomes now, but the outcome aligns with what I think is right anyway, is that he wins both. Oh no, sorry, that he wins. It's like if Trump gets indicted and convicted of a crime, and the public, all of his fans, are not convinced that he should be. That's bad.
Okay. What if there are bad outcomes to what you're doing? Say what you want happens. His medical license gets revoked.
He won't even let her talk.
Let me finish.
He stopped for like 10
That does
seconds.
not mean that he should not be indicted if he committed a crime.
Cactus.
Okay.
If Trump committed a crime, he should be indicted. But I think it is the duty of journalists and whoever else, and artists, to try to explain in the most convincing, compelling way they can why that's happening to his fans.
Okay.
And
So
I feel like a duty
That
to
never
do
ends.
that,
There's a couple
to
more cars.
explain to Dr. K's fans if I'm going
Buses?
to
What do you call the
yank
things on the
this, like,
trains?
resource
Carts?
out of their lives. I
Wait,
feel
one more. Okay.
I feel obligated to also provide context to that, much the same way Dr. K, he's right about this. The professionals will not come explain it to you.
okay.
And I'm fucking begging them to, and they won't. And so I see why he started the company, because they just won't get on Twitch and talk.
Yeah. Because of liability.
I mean, you're here, but like, you know, the people who are like teaching and like psychology at universities won't come on Twitch. They won't do it
No, they won't because of
because
liability.
they're cowards.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel, so that's why I'm making the educational video. And so it's not that I want to destroy his reputation. It's I want to protect people from him and explain why I'm doing that.
I believe that.
And I want to be as emotionally transparent about it as possible.
I believe that. The problem is that I think like you're not being either like honest or where. So like my question would be of like where this could go.
They're
and,
looping
like,
so hard on this
what your
combo. They need to
duty
move the
is to it.
topic
So
on
my
to the next
question is,
thing.
okay, let's.
I don't
let's-
have a duty. I don't think I have a duty to control the behavior of my audience? Or of anybody else's audience.
So let's say in this let's like run out a situation and everything you want to have happen happens and nothing extra happens. There's no harassing anything. So it's kind of the ideal situation for you. Like
I fundamentally
He won't let her
I feel like you
fucking-
keep asking me questions without
well, you're not letting me finish that.
Yeah,
question.
she hasn't finished a single thing, and like,
But you're not reconciling that I don't think that way, and I think it is wrong to even ask
Don't think what way.
that the ends justify the means.
that's
Right. So
I am not strategizing.
So if something really bad happened
The
as a
way that-
result, like 4 of the clients that are seeing healthy gamer coaches end up dying by suicide, would you still feel like you had done something good and like you would be okay with the actions that you had taken? Particularly when somebody's
Yes.
voiced like, hey, some of these things are valid, but I'm
Yes.
worried about other things. That would be okay with you.
Jesus.
Let's be clear. Are you asking me if it's okay with me if people commit suicide?
No one's saying
Would I
that.
feel,
I'm saying
would I feel horrible about it? Yes. Would I blame myself? Yes. Would that make me think that I had that it I don't do things that I think are wrong. Particularly on my channel. Like when I have time to really think through what do I think is the right thing to do and the right way to approach this. I don't do things that I think are wrong. So if I do my best and something horrible happens, will that make me wish I could go in a time machine and like do something different? Like maybe, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to not do what I think is right.
right. I think I guess an issue I'm having is it feels like you're blurring the line between artist and advocate, and I think that there are different levels of care that are.
I don't think there's a line. I guess I just don't agree that there is a line.
I think there absolutely is a line. Social advocates
think
work
that
very
there-
different than artists.
I don't.
True.
I think there's a lot of overlap. Maybe.
Oh,
maybe
fuck
it's
me,
all
dude.
overlap.
Fucking dubstep.
Right.
Oh, never mind.
Monkaster.
Fuck you.
I think there's political art and social art and artistic advocacy. Like, I just don't agree with you.
Yeah. I think it is wrong to let people hijack your anger and convert it into their own and then use that anger that they have not earned for whatever means that they have. And I think you are setting up a situation, just like you said, like there's a recipe to like have some certain end. I'm concerned that you're setting up a recipe for some certain end. And I get that you said like the ends don't justify the means, but I think you still have to be thoughtful of where things can go based on your actions.
I don't think you should be inauthentic or conceal or not speak because of that. I think if I were you, there are things I would not say because of my clients. for sure.
Right.
And that is, and I said, like, I don't want to be a therapist because I can't, because of things I've said and done. But I don't feel that way about my audience. I feel that my duty to my audience is to say those things and not hold them in because I'm afraid of what will happen.
Okay. I guess because you're not concerned about the ends, right? You're concerned with like principles. But you said
I'm very concerned. I'm just not making decisions based on that concern.
Yeah, I guess my concern is that because you're kind of taking like a deontological approach of saying like I'm cared about the principles and the policies.
Are you
But I said, okay,
serious,
well, what
dude?
if the IRB, the like major head of these principles and policies, said you're incorrect? You basically said it would make me stop and think, but I'd probably continue anyways because I feel like if right, you did the whole analogy of like I'm pretty sure I know that this is a water battle, and so if the board says it's not, then I'm gonna take on the board too.
Yeah.
Similarly, I think it is wrong to let people take your anger, your righteous anger, and use it for their own ends.
I know. You said that.
It might be worth pointing out to Denim's fans that it wasn't actually you she cheated on in your bed. They seem to be laboring under that assumption. Law XD.
Why the fuck would I give a fuck what random
but I don't-
dipshits on Twitter think about that I fucking was dating Denims or whatever? Let people think what they want. I don't give a fuck.
I just don't see how I can. You're essentially saying that at some point I'll get too big to be honest. Too big to be emotional.
Yes,
And
there comes a
I
point
think
where you
that's,
can't act the same at a certain size as you would. Yeah, of course.
I don't think that's acceptable to me. For a number of reasons. So I think that what needs to happen is that I need to be more. I need more disclosure about my anger and where it's coming from, not less.
It's not about you being too big. Your impact, it's not about you being too big. Your art matters, right?
Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be saying this to me if
Man,
I...
we're just, it's never ending, dude. It's just never ending. It's, dude, why do I play these fucking games?
I think it is about me
Jesus.
becoming too big.
No, I think some art makes you an advocate.
I wasn't paying attention to
Wenji, Mr. Guru, you have to stop putting things in the most abrasive way. But also, please don't look at my Twitter.
Yeah, I guess I just don't agree. If we have to choose between authenticity and responsibility, I'm gonna go for authenticity. At the crossroads.
I don't think that these things are mutually exclusive.
I think that you are doing some mental gymnastics.
How so?
No one is coming. No one is ever gonna be here. Why the fuck would I even come over here? So fucking retarded. There's no one here.
I guess I just don't see anger as destructive as you do, or the expression of it. I think that you're explaining repression and like self-censorship in a way.
Okay.
I
Would
feel
it
like I've
maybe
outpaced him intellectually.
be helpful
Is this a
for
bad
us to
time?
talk a little bit about
I'm
what
in
we
the
both agree on? Because I feel like this whole conversation has been like us kind of at odds with one another.
Whatever the fuck you want.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Go ahead.
Okay. Do you still feel like we are engaging in like
I've said a lot more about what I think than you have. You've mostly said what you don't think. So you want to go? Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Sure.
You already know what I think. So I can't say what I agree with you on because I don't know. All I know is what I disagree with you on. I disagree with this like emotional shit.
Okay.
You're saying.
So where we're probably going to agree is areas where I think Dr. K has misstepped. I imagine. I think one of the most important ones. So there's a lot of ethic gray, and I think ethic grays matter for two two reasons. First of all, if there are ethic grays that are going on in a situation that maybe is so say we do a whole bunch of data, and in this world we find out not only is Dr. K helping people, but he's helping people as much as possible, and the ethics go against that, we probably need to look at how we manage these ethics, right? To make potentially what Dr. K is doing actually rinse and repeatable in a safe way. If it's true that I'm assuming, giving him the greatest benefit of the doubt, that he's doing the best possible work, right?
I will make it legal.
Yeah, basically making the ethics change, right? Because I think that there are absolutely times where ethics get behind technology, behind the world, and things need to change. So in that case, if we figure out Dr. K is doing not just good work, but immensely good work, we should probably rinse and repeat that, because mental health is obviously a major issue that needs to be addressed. And most experts would tell you, I can't think of a single expert that would disagree that we are not adequately addressing mental health in our nations.
100% disagree. Continue.
Okay. I would say Dr. K violated, so in the American psychiatric ethics, I kind of went through, there's one of them about providing competent medical care. And the first stanza of that talks about how basically that they need to ensure that the boundaries of the doctor-patient relationship are really clear. Right? We talked about this.
That's like the first paragraph.
Yeah, it's the first one. I agree that he violated this to some extent. I just don't know to what extent, whether it's like malpractice or whether it's this was bad, here's a consequence for you. Because he should have defined the relationship
I'll probably chat with her when she's
way
done.
before episode 5, right? He defined it. So